What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
8VA. Chapter 161 I Need Strength. East Blue. Balmond nodded towards Camilla after walking into the top floor of the palace tower. Those intruders have all been dealt with. Or those people can't think of it themselves. Their whereabouts were completely exposed from the first moment they appeared in Rog Town. Their number, their behavior and habits, have been recorded in every detail and reported to a certain place. It seems that the cards in the opponent's hand are almost used up, and I heard the New World's side is almost the same. As time progresses, G5's intelligence has begun to be open to them. Although Balmond and Tahir have not spoken directly, they have communicated through some channels that Dylan has tacitly approved. In the past week, the pirates who suddenly appeared in East Blue teamed up with a world government alliance and suddenly launched a war against the Kingdom of Girona. But the war lasted only a week. In fact, it was less than a week, because in just one day, the Kingdom of Girona wiped out the incoming pirates and the army of that kingdom at an extremely fast speed. For the next 6 days, Girona completely sealed off the kingdom and annexed it silently. Although someone noticed something was wrong. But in this sea, the transmission of information is very primitive. When the officials of the world government noticed the problem, the only remaining heir to the royal family of that country told him very sincerely. We admire Yiju, the Kingdom of Girona, and now pass the bill to voluntarily join the Kingdom of Girona. In this sensitive period, world government officials did not delve too deeply. After all, the Kingdom of Girona has made it clear that it will officially join the world government at the World Summit a few months later. It's just a switch from left to right. Not much difference. And rumor has it that Girona is that man's back garden. Camilla, who was standing by the guardrail, looked puzzled. Balmond walked behind her and looked at the sea in the distance. Balmond. There was a tremor in her voice. She is no longer the young girl who held her head high and said that as long as the people are fed, she is a good king. Quote. Balmond did not respond to her, and he was equally puzzled. This incomprehension has been with him for many years. That man possessed extraordinary wisdom and foresight. Has unparalleled wrist and strength. But he has no pursuit. Power, beauty, money, pleasure. These things that fascinate the world seem unattractive to him. Power, probably not, because countless stories in this world have proved it. The pursuit of power is not the goal, power is only a means to an end. Where is his goal? A gleam of sadness flashed across Camilla's eyes. Her sapphire blue eyes lost their luster for a moment. He is leaving, after fulfilling their common ideal. She had imagined countless times that when they completed their ideal, the world would enter an orderly stage. She could be by his side, strolling in Girona together, rafting on the sea together, and discussing the esoteric knowledge he had mentioned by chance. But all of this seems to be fading away. Camilla's body shook slightly. A gust of sea breeze hit, and Camilla's long hair was blown to dance in the wind. Balmond carefully put on her cloak. Camilla, you have to understand him. He also loves this world deeply, and he has paid too much for this world. Balmond was also a little lost, but quickly regained his senses. We can't bind him with love, he also has his own life. Advertisement. 2 lines of clear tears flowed down Camilla's cheeks slowly. South Blue. In the depths of a deserted island. Craig spread his palms. Moan. There was a metallic sound. The golden wings behind him, the sharp claws on his fingertips. Garuda. What the hell is it? It's a bird, idiot. Who? Me. You can think that I am Garuda. I am you now. Craig looked cold. Balmond has made it very clear before, once his character is affected. Wait. The voice sounded again, with a trace of anxiety and uneasiness. Why is your heart like a stone? Although I don't intend to erode you, why do you suddenly turn into this ghost every time I try to talk to you? Are you a fool? Craig's expression became more and more indifferent. In this world, even that man said such things only once, and later apologized to himself very seriously and sincerely. When I was still very weak and cowardly. It was also from that day that he felt the respect and trust between people. Hey, the sound stopped abruptly, as if it had never appeared before. When Craig walked out of the deserted island, the golden wings and sharp claws on his back had long since disappeared. The man said that the fruit can strengthen oneself, but even if there is no power of the fruit, it will not affect the whole situation. Compared with a help, I hope you will always be yourself. That's what Dylan himself came over to him before. These words also shocked him greatly. Through Balmond's analysis over the years, as the head of the Third Army, he also roughly knows what the enemy he will face in the future. If only human power, I am afraid that what he can do is to clear some secular obstacles for the peace round table. No. Craig squeezed his huge fist. Since I have been placed with hope, I can't let him down. Back at the stronghold, Craig nodded to one of his followers. He knew that this person was arranged by Balmond to analyze his personality changes in words and deeds. Craig relaxed after getting the response. Garuda. You be *******D, why are you willing to talk to me now? I need strength. Strength. There was a hint of doubt in Garuda's voice. The blood in your body is also good. In 10 or 20 years, it should be. That's too late. Craig closed his eyes. He couldn't see Garuda's appearance, but after relaxing his mind, he could feel that he was somewhere in his body. Our enemies are exceptionally strong, and war is imminent. Garuda fell silent, and after a while, he quietly asked, "Who are you talking about?" The extraordinarily powerful enemy. This time it was Craig's turn to be silent. But soon his eyes became firm again. "I don't know yet, but probably, it's guys like you." Interesting. Chapter 162 by time. The second half of New World. The fleshy wings on Shiryu's back slowly disappeared, and the lines on his body also slowly disappeared. These are very ordinary characters. Although there are some guys who can barely catch the eye, they are not enough to affect and impact the senior officers of G5. So far, 2/3 of the territory under the original Whitebeard pirate group has been assigned to G5. And Blackbeard doesn't seem to care. Because even though the G5 takes up so many places, everyone understands it. It has almost reached the upper limit of the management range. No matter how much there is, it is impossible for G5 to manage it. And behind him, there is still a large area that is unowned. The thief really aggressive. Dark Dragon, obviously Lousy has helped him with his affairs. Don't you give him any affection. The current situation is not good, although there is no accurate information. But it is said that the strange person who appeared in De Rees Rosa is Rox D. Zebek. So what? Blackbeard stretched out his left hand, and the surrounding air faintly began to twist. Although the shock fruit was not found, the twisted fruit is just as powerful. He won't come to me, that arrogant guy, at least I wasn't the first one. Oh, why are you so confident? Katerina Dupont was a little surprised why the Admiral was so sure that the Dark Dragon would not be the first to find the Blackbeard pirates. The thief because he needs Lousy. Needs Lousy to buy him time. Buying time. Well, Dylan nodded solemnly after lighting his cigarette. There are no eternal secrets in the world, and some of my arrangements have gradually surfaced. At this time, the world government is still trying to tolerate me. It's because they still need me work. Although some of the arrangements were deliberately exposed by Dylan himself, he believes that it is impossible for the world government to be completely unaware. A regime that has maintained its rule for 800 years is right to be cautious. The current him, in the eyes of the world government, should be a dangerous knife. After the enemy is completely killed, the fate of this knife may not be very good. Whether it's Linlin or Kaido, they're actually not too worried. What they really value is Teach. After all, the Straw Hat is dead, and Teach has inherited the name of the D family. Keeping Teach is considered raising take care of yourself, Co. Halfway through the conversation, Dylan looked around and thought about it. Where's Shiryu? Why haven't I seen him in the past 2 days? When there is nothing to do, everyone still maintains the previous habit, and they all like to go to his office to chat and drink tea. Except for Leo, who rarely participated, everyone else would come over more or less. He's gone to find someone. Find someone. Tahir nodded. When Shiryu left, his expression was very serious, and he had rarely seen Shiryu like that in these years. He said he went to join the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates and try to find a way to break through. Dylan froze for a moment. Among the phantom beast species under him, Zephyr has no intention of developing the fruit to awakening, and he clearly stated that he will stop developing it when the critical point arrives. There was a crack in my Xing, so this is a big gamble for me. I don't want to gamble. So, you guys do it, I will guard G5 for you. And Tahir has already hinted to himself that even if there is a conspiracy in Tamamo May, he is sure enough. Craig. In fact, I don't worry too much about him, because his growth is shaped by himself, and his physique and spirit are far superior to others. Advertisement. It is Shiryu who worries Dylan the most. Although Shiryu's hunting has been the most frequent these years, Dylan can clearly perceive that there is some kind of difference, or mismatch, between his will and the Ashura fruit. This also caused Shiryu's strength improvement in the past 2 years to be very limited. Already overwhelmed by Tahir, Zephyr, Tom, and Bullet. I'm afraid this is also the reason why Shiryu has become more and more anxious recently. After all, as a high-level executive who often participates in discussions and meetings, he also had certain guesses about the battle to come soon. And Dylan didn't hide the potential hidden dangers of phantom beasts from him and Zephyr. In that case, Dylan pondered for a moment. To be honest, after Shiryu experienced that dream that he didn't know the specific situation before, his ability should have touched the edge of awakening. But it is probably because the will is difficult to overlap, so the will can't really go to the last step. Let him go. I believe he is prepared in his heart. Prepared to face ideological erosion. After all, Shiryu was the first to eat the devil fruit, although his natural fit with the Ashura fruit was not as high as Tahir. But he himself was very determined. As early as when Tahir first came to G5, Shiryu, as a human body, was able to ignore Tahir's charm. The back section of New World. On the vast sea, especially on the Grand Line, the various weather changes are very strange. The vortex that appeared out of thin air, the endless thunder and lightning, the weird upward gravity, and the inescapable fog. All kinds of unexplained weather are everywhere in New World. Therefore, even during the period when the 4 emperors ruled, there were still many unowned lands in this sea. Because some places are simply Jedi for human beings, and they cannot set foot at all. Or areas where there is no need to take risks. You are stationed on the spot, and then, I can go alone. After winning the 4 emperors position, Blackbeard did not forcefully chase them. From the day when the numbers of the combat units of G5 were established, he has been following Shiryu as his adjutant. The world and pirates don't think highly of Shiryu. Shiryu held. Thunderstorm, and the fleshy wings behind him opened again. Ashura's will is to challenge the strong, not slaughter the weak senselessly. Although Shiryu looks indifferent, but it was he who took the initiative to initiate the remnants led by Marco during the gap between the occupation of the Whitebeard pirates area. He remembered what Dylan had said to him 8 years ago, not long after he ate the Ashura fruit. But his adjutant knows that Chief Shiryu has changed a lot over the years, and he seldom abuses the weak. He has received a subpoena from the G5's intelligence service, and it has been confirmed after correcting the location. The rear is the area where the original Whitebeard pirates were scattered. Shiryu looked calm as he galloped through the air. The adjutant of the G504 combat unit watched Shiryu after saluting. Battle of the end. Strictly speaking, Blackbeard is also a passive party. They only know that Shiryu of Rain is an extremely bloodthirsty G5 general. Watching Shiryu disappear into the sky, the adjutant of the 04 combat unit withdrew his thoughts, turned around and gave an order to Marine behind him. Be careful, sir. Chapter 163 Bearing Strength. As the senior generals of G5 return one after another, it also heralds the complete destruction of the Red Hair Pirates. The term, Four Emperors, no longer exists today. No matter how powerful an individual is, he cannot bear the title of Emperor of the Sea alone. Because carrying this title is not just about personal strength. You also need to have enough crowds and forces to be able to occupy a considerable part of the New World. Although this name was not established by the world government, there is no doubt that it is a customary rule of the world. For this result, the Redhead seemed to accept it silently. Like the great pirates who disappeared from the world, he disappeared too. No one knew where he went or what he was doing. The remaining 3 Emperors of the Sea also retreated steadily under the advancement of G5. G5's territory is almost on the border with the Big Mom Pirates, but the Big Mom Pirates gave up that area without even making a symbolic resistance. The Blackbeard Pirates have never had direct contact with G5. Every time before the G5 fleet approaches, his men will be the first to evacuate, and they will not hesitate to abandon the islands and kingdoms that have been occupied by him. As for Kaido of the Beasts, he was almost disappearing from their sight, except for the name of the strongest creature. The last time there was a report was 2 weeks ago. Beasts Pirates Big Signboard. Drought. Jack attacks Dark Dragon Vice Admiral. No one cares about the result, because the result is inevitable. And Kaido has no additional actions and responses to this. You guys, how should I put it? If your guess is correct, then I can tell you clearly that your chances of winning are not particularly high. Garuda smiled. Guys like him, isn't that the same people and monsters back then? Craig didn't answer him, just quietly waiting for his answer. Quote. Garuda fell silent. The war more than 800 years ago is still vivid. He's not Joey Poe's partner. He is just the general of a kingdom, fighting fiercely with the monsters to protect the kingdom from being affected. But there are too many monsters, and the location of their country is bad, right around Uzumaki on the battlefield. He died, with a strong sense of guilt and disappointment. In the past 2 years, I have been watching the world through you, and I have also secretly read your memories. Garuda started talking to himself. That little guy is an amazing person. Last time, after Dylan discovered the risk of awakening of phantom beasts, he came to South Blue once and visited Craig once. That time, Garuda clearly felt Dylan's gaze. Although his eyes were on Craig, Garuda knew it. He is looking at himself. He is warning himself. If he really dared to deprive Craig of his humanity, then what he would have to face might be complete destruction. Although he was very curious about how the other party would use to destroy this kind of power that they could not fully understand so far. But from Dylan's expression, he saw a kind of nonchalant confidence. At that time, Craig suppressed himself with his unwavering heart, and he couldn't communicate with Craig, let alone merge and swallow him. He can't even transmit thoughts. This is why Craig said that when he first liberated the fruit power on the desert island. He has already met me and gave me a warning. To be honest, if you have any chance of winning, then, it's all on him. Craig still didn't answer, he just listened, quietly. At that time, power was still very pure. There were many geniuses, but even so, no one had ever broken free from the shackles of nature. As a consciousness in the bloodline factor, he doesn't have clear senses. Advertisement. But even then, he just felt it. That guy, he broke the ancient iron rules. He breaks free from Lodia's shackles and the inevitable homecoming. He is very powerful, so powerful that I can't judge it, but Garuda lost interest when it came to this point. This guy doesn't like to study, and his heart is as hard as a rock. There is no way to discuss these things with him. When I talk to you, it actually means that I have no intention of devouring your mind, because from that moment on, you know my existence, and you will instinctively be wary of me. If you really want to devour you, it's a long process. It's better to start as a kid. Ja Lualu's voice slowly fell silent. In that case, I can shape you into my original form from the beginning, and when your personality perfectly coincides with mine, it will be the time for me to occupy you. If you want strength, keep going. My country has disappeared, and I am an incompetent general. I hope you can protect what you want to protect. After listening to Garuda's words, Craig stood up slowly. Not enough to carry the power of it. When he was young, his character was very cowardly, but that doesn't mean he was really stupid. A real fool can't survive for many years as a ghoul in various battlefields. The meaning of Garuda is already obvious, if one's physical or spiritual will can't reach the level enough to suppress his previous life. Then when it comes to real awakening, the result may be that the consciousness of two people is entangled. Even if Garuda himself voluntarily gave up, he couldn't control the arrangement of the bloodline factors. Become a monster. Craig's eyes blazed hot. It's worth it. Scattered power. Well, this is a very strange phenomenon. Dylan touched his chin, and there were small photos of the strong men of all ages on the table. Look, do you find anything wrong? Tahir frowned slightly after looking around the photo. After a while, he said, there is indeed something wrong. Among the known strong men, including those from 800 years ago, they all seem to be concentrated in 2 or 3 clear camps. That's right. The 800-year-old strongman, Joey Boy, the previous generation, Poseidon, the sleeping gods, the elephant lord. 20 kings, national treasure. Now, pirates, marine, revolutionary army. This is not right at all. In such a vast world, even in today's world government, they still cannot truly and completely unify the whole world. Why is there no strong man born among the people? Smile, Aramaki. These 2 guys are just exceptions. But it is strange because it is a special case. It is impossible for the world to be completely decayed to this extent. For example, Alabasta, a superpower that dominates the paradise. They have sufficient social resources and political status. It is not difficult at all to cultivate a super strong person. But it didn't. A defeated dog-lock doll who has lost the heart of the strong can make trouble in Alabasta. De Reese Rosa, Osiris, who is not even a bronze medalist, is actually the patron saint and the most powerful person of such a big country. Wanokuni, a place that Joey Boy is extremely fancy, there is no strong player after Shimotsuki Ryoma. Kazuki Odin. This kind of thing. Chapter 164. What do pirates eat? Even the monster recruits from the G5 World Conscription are only the Gaiman brothers at the top level. But there is still a gap between the Guilman brothers and Admiral's level. Although Al Buff of the strongest country is unknown, judging from the strength of Goatee, Waterfall Beard, Blue Ogre, and Red Ghost. The moisture in this strongest country is simply outrageous. Can a cow and horse of Calding's level be called Al Buff's new star? This era is barely comprehensible. But what about the previous era? And 800 years ago? In the era of great pirates, because of Roger's conspiracy, the number of pirates surged, leading to intensified hatred. Careerists and saboteurs chose lawless freedom to become pirates. And those who were strong or righteous among the victims chose the marine camp. But that was not the case in the last era. Before the era of the Great Pirate, there were still very few named folk powerhouses, or powerhouses from various kingdoms. After classifying the photos, Tahir asked with some doubts, is it the suppression of both the world government and the pirates? It should be like this, the Vodka Kingdom where Kaido was born, and the House of Lamb, run by Carmelites, they all have one thing in common, for example, they will sell people with potential to marine or CP. There are also some monsters who have their own ideas since childhood, such as Whitebeard and the like. But this explanation still cannot form a closed loop. I think there's still one thing over everybody's heads that's guiding it all. Dylan nodded. It must be that dead woman. When she sees, or discovers, a guy with potential, she will either lead her to join the marine from the sidelines, or create a tragedy there and make him a pirate. The two forces have been under her control for nearly 1,000 years to form a delicate balance. Pirates have no guts to subvert the world directly, but they wander around, plunder and destroy everywhere. Due to various restraints, Marine can only make up for the leaks everywhere, and goes to jail where he is. And the national treasure of celestial dragons obviously cannot be activated easily. This has resulted in the fact that although the world government has always ruled the world, it cannot completely and truly rule it. They can only maintain a fragile balance and have been lingering. But as the owner of the Void Throne, doing so is obviously not in line with her identity and interests. Some speculation gradually came to Dylan's mind. Got an answer. Tahir looked at Dylan's brows loosening and tightening, and asked. No, just a guess. Dylan shook his head. There is still a lack of evidence. What I tell you now will affect your judgment. In the current G5, Dylan has basically let go of Tahir. He is still not proficient in mastering the last power, and he no longer asks and participates in these trivial matters. If you tell Tahir an immature guess at this time, it will inevitably affect his arrangement. Shiryu held the bloody thunderstorm, and looked at the fallen, former Whitebeard Pirates 5th Division Captain, Foil Vista. Already quite a few. The blood in his chest began to boil. The uncontrollable desire to fight and kill flooded his heart again. Click. Shiryu's expression tightened. This is his disadvantage, although he has suppressed this nature very much these years. But Dylan had told him so. Suppression is not the right approach. Conquer it, break it. That's the only way out. Otherwise, this nature will eventually consume him. Advertisement. A**. A cyan figure flew from a distance, accompanied by a frightened and angry voice. Whitebeard Pirates. For things like sea emperors, those who regard them as heroes have a problem with their heads. Are not having experienced the beatings of the world. In a small chat, everyone talked about the world's evaluation of various sea emperors. There was unabashed disgust in Dylan's expression at the time. Some people say that One Piece Roger is a hero who changed the world pattern by himself. But the result? The world has become more and more miserable, and there are more people who go to sea to be thieves. Raided once, but since the age of great pirates began, they may all die before the next looting. Such people, what is there to praise? As for Whitebeard, Dylan glanced blankly at the strategy map that was hanging on the office wall at the time. Don't look at him now squatting in New World with 5 people and 6 sons. Where did his food and drink come from? Did it fall from the sky? Or can he survive by drinking wind and farts? If he doesn't go for it, don't those bastards under him go for it? Didn't most of the stuff end up in Whitebeard's hands when they were done? He sheltered those bastards to rob, and his hands were not stained with blood, so his hands were really clean. Which of the islands he sheltered did not pay tribute every year? And he, quote. Dylan shook his head. It's very biased, and he said that they are all family members and his son. During the Summit War, in order to save Pottercast D'Ace alone, he did not hesitate to take the entire Whitebeard pirate group into it. When little Ozzy died, he didn't touch much, and when Lakyo was killed, he was the same. But when Margot was almost burned to death by Tahir, he shot immediately. When Ace was killed by Akainu, Whitebeard's whole body came back to life. What a loving family. So, you don't need to listen to what the pirates say, let alone believe it. That's why I never get information from pirates. Phoenix, Margao frowned as he looked at the foil sword beast who had lost his breath of life on the ground. Have you started attacking them? G5. After losing the battle of ending, Margot retreated with the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates. Whether facing Blackbeard or facing G5, we have already. They didn't even participate in the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago, although some people inside said that they should help Ace's younger brother. But Margao, as the person who rushed to the front line in the Summit War, is very aware of Marine's strength. Once they show up, there will inevitably be additional staff on the Marine side. Is it cleared by hiding? I remember that there is no such provision in the law. As the former warden of Impel Down, Shiryu is well aware of the various laws and punishments. Margao said indifferently. Since G5 is not going to give us a way out, then you can die here. The world is so big, there is always a place for them to go. It is good. Shiryu grinned. The black mist that turned into substance began to flow on his body. Phoenix Seal. Sticks. Chapter 165 The storm is coming. The pitch black figure and the blue figure rushed together in an instant. The whole island was shaken, and the plants behind the two figures instantly changed into completely different appearances. The plants behind Shiryu withered and dissipated, but the plants behind Margao appeared more vibrant. Has it reached this level already? Margot was secretly surprised. During the Summit War, Shiryu of Rain basically followed the Dark Dragon. The fight against Beasta seems to be mostly interception. Later, when Teach appeared, he was more serious, but he just killed that guy named Devil Sheriff Lafitte. More than 2 years. In the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago not long ago, he has been able to effectively contain the red hair. And now, Margao's heart sank, and Vista's life card burned quickly, which showed that the fight between them only lasted for a short time. There was a slight look of disappointment in Shiryu's eyes. Not strong enough. But, let's sharpen the knife first. Bang! The thunderstorm wrapped in black mist slashed towards Margao's body. Margao's body rotated in the air to avoid the slash, and his right foot turned into a bird's claw again and kicked on the blade of thunderstorm. Crane claw. The powerful kick made Lei Yu's blade tremble, and the direction of the slashing also changed slightly. Laugh. On the side of Shiryu's body, the thunderstorm cut across Margao's right shoulder with inertia. The raging green flames burned, and the gap in the right shoulder slowly healed. Phoenix. Shiryu watched how quickly the wound on Margao's right shoulder was healing and smiled. This kind of ability, Tahir once told him, even if the ability is imprisoned by Seastone, as long as his ability is restored, all wounds can be healed by the flame of the Phoenix. Although the wound on his right shoulder had healed, Margao's heart grew heavier. Healing speed is suppressed. I heard that your mantra is that the flame of the Phoenix is special. Shiryu held Thunderstorm in his hand, and the body of Thunderstorm's knife was dripping with black mist. Ashura's black mist is also unique. Along with Shiryu's voice, wailing began to emerge around him, and a ferocious ghost began to struggle and scream in the black mist. The green flames on Margao's body became more and more vigorous. The breath on the opposite side is very ominous. And he could clearly feel the restraint of that breath on him. Is the opposition between life and death. Shiryu held the thunderstorm across his chest, and as the black fog thickened, the evil spirits in the black fog seemed to be trying to break free. Yellow spring great burning heat. The black mist covered the sky and the sun, and the entire island was shrouded in it. Those plants that had been thriving in the healing flame withered instantly. Undead thistle. A shield composed of Qingyan emerged, and the billowing black mist collided with Qingyan. The evil spirits in the black mist howled and dissipated in the green flames, but after the green flames, Margao shed cold sweat. To this extent, it was too exhausting. In some ways, he's just like Ace. Extremely relying on ability to fight, and his ability consumes a lot of physical energy. The island shrouded in black mist could hardly see any light, and his surroundings became pitch black. Although the surrounding black mist never hit him, there was also that strange howling faintly coming from within the black mist. Accompanied by bursts of sound like war drums. The sound of the drum was intense and high-spirited, as if it had the ambition to cut down the sky. No. Marco's expression froze. If this continues, I will definitely lose. Nirvana fire. Boom. A huge Qingyan rose from Margau's body and shot straight into the sky. The black mist that originally surrounded him was dispelled in an instant. The moment the sun shone down, a figure appeared above his head. The fleshy wings behind the figure once again blocked the sun, and his hand held the handle of the knife. The black mist above the handle turned into fireworks. Yellow Spring Infernal Affairs. Advertisement. A huge eye loomed behind Shiryu's back, and there was no emotion in that gaze. Can't. The wailing around is still going on, how did he do it? Margot looked at the pierced chest with doubts. He saw. His soul was being pulled by the long knife wrapped in black mist in front of him. The moment he fell to the ground, he subconsciously looked towards the sky. Those eyes are more condensed. Watching Margao Shiryu turn into dry bones, he flicked the blade and put Thunderstorm back into the scabbard. The black mist on the small island has dissipated, and the corpses of those pirates who had died long ago have all been reduced to dry bones. With a slight movement in his heart, Shiryu looked up towards the sky. Those eyes had long since disappeared. Not strong enough. Shiryu spread his wings and flew towards the distance. Vic stood at the window looking at the Greenbit civilian port located between the G5 branch and the CP garrison. 2 years. No one can believe that such a scene only took 2 short years. The 5 elders had grown suspicious of him, although he didn't know where this suspicion came from. But Vic, who has served Mariajoy for many years, has a keen instinct. Maybe I have been with Adams Dillon for too long. Although he did not participate in many important battles, he never harmed the interests of CP or Mariajoy. But that's how people in power are, they make decisions without evidence or anything else. When they think you have it, or when they suspect you have it, you have been characterized by them. Although they did it in a subtle way, Vic had clearly noticed it. Some of my subordinates may have received all orders that are not good for me. And when the order was officially launched, the eyebrows under Vic's mask raised slightly. I'm afraid it's time for that war to come, right? Thinking of the small island of East Blue, Vic couldn't help but smile. So good, Amy. How can I let you go back to hell? Tuck tuck. Come in, sir, this is a new order from the headquarters. Vic took the file and glanced at it. Send more people to sneak into Greenbit and wait for orders. Vic closed the file and smiled. Do you want to test? I was really protected by that guy. At this sensitive and fragile time, Mariajoy will not touch Adams Dillon, nor will he touch the people around him. This includes Vic himself. After the de Reese Rosa incident, wars broke out all over the world. Those decaying kingdoms face a huge shock. The violent organization, Marine, that maintains order as Mariajoy turns a blind eye to these riots. Today, some smart people in this world have finally seen a glimpse of the true face of Dark Dragon, Adams Dillon. His ultimate goal, it's Mariajoy. But Mariajoy's laissez-faire has also made the world feel uneasy. So almost blatantly provocative, Mariajoy turned a blind eye, not even accountable. Even if it is a complaint from dozens of joining countries. Even in just 2 weeks, more than a dozen franchise countries have fallen into corruption. World government is a fool. They can't understand the provocation and temptation of Dark Dragon. Impossible. People who think this way are themselves very stupid. There is only one possibility. World government also needs Dark Dragon to complete a certain thing. And they are not afraid of the challenge of the Dark Dragon. Chapter 166 Returning to the original homeland. The restlessness in the 4 seas intensified. Pirates, Marines, the underground world, and the royal families of various countries began to think about it. They are left with little time and choices. Dark Dragon. Although he is sitting on a strong lineup like G5 that is already comparable to Marineford. And Marineford and the whole Marine seem to be acquiescing and supportive of him. In addition to the Marine system, he also owns the Kingdom of Greenbit, the Kingdom of Chia, the Capital of Water, and the Kingdom of Girona. But that's all. Can it really stand against the world government? Why did the world government tolerate him again and again? Where is the balance point of the game between them? IWC, Toto Land. Well, you actually killed Rox. The Dark Dragon guy. On Cake Island, Charlotte Linlin nonchalantly sat on a giant cake throne, laughing as she ate her dessert. Mom. Katakuri finally couldn't help but speak after hesitating for a while. We must make a choice or start to act as soon as possible. Charlotte Linlin glanced at her second son who was highly regarded by her. A choice. We don't have any extra choices now. This, all nations, that she spent decades building, even Homitz, who was bestowed with a soul by him, no longer has the joy of the past at this moment. It is already a power disparity that makes people almost desperate. Not to mention the Dark Dragon himself. I am afraid that if only the senior officers of G5 came in a team, the destruction of the nations would be unstoppable. Rox also died, and his agreement with the world government was invalidated the moment he died. Katakuri was not as confident as before. In fact, since the Summit War, he has felt the danger. Although Marine at the time didn't go all out to kill guys other than Whitebeard for some reason. But in the following 2 years, the Dark Dragon, who was originally hidden in the mist, completely exposed his terrifying strength and ambition. Brazenly controlling a huge kingdom, intervening in the civil war of the Alliance, promoting the war of the Alliance, and cultivating forces in the 4 seas. As a new generation of Marine hero, he has an unparalleled reputation and fans among Marine. His performance in the Summit War made his G5 World conscription not lose to naval headquarters and even made the pirates more nervous. And his sweeping tour of the front section of New World and the entire park made his reputation among the people also flourishing. Vaguely, he has become a godlike figure. Those who are still suffering from war and hardship, some people have begun to pray for his success and his rule. Green bit. That inclusive, open, wealthy and beautiful country. Even if there was an attack, very few people were injured and no one left there. It has become the utopia in the hearts of many people. Katakuri frowned. He didn't know what his mother was thinking, but that man's attitude towards pirates. The red hair pirates have been completely wiped out, the Whitebeard pirates. 2 days ago, there was news that those guys who were oppressed into the corner by G5 and Blackbeard pirates had almost been slaughtered by Shiryu of Rain alone. In this world, the pirates who can handle, there are only 3 of them left. But Katakuri knew that the title of Emperor of the Sea had been completely reduced to a joke. If you have to say, perhaps this title is more appropriate for that man. Advertisement. The strongest and the only one, the Emperor of the Sea. Looking at the weak younger siblings behind him, Katakuri felt uncomfortable. He himself is not afraid of death, but the lives of many younger brothers and sisters have not yet begun. Surrender. Combat. The disparity in strength is too great. Even if it's only 10%. No. Even if there is a 5%, or even a 1% chance, Katakuri is willing to fight to the death. Unfortunately no. In the end, there was only one way out that he could think of. Kaido of the Beasts, entrenched in Wano Kuni. If we join hands with him, maybe there is still a glimmer of life. But Charlotte Linlin just said casually, and didn't seem to intend to get an answer from the calm second son. With her eyelids drooping, she fell into a deep sleep. The surrounding Homits and other cadres retreated one after another. The beaming nations fell into dead silence. Even the most stupid guy knows, their lives have entered the countdown. Katakuri silently boarded his car and drove towards his island. Members of the Musketeers and Knights stood in a row. Behind are thousands of members of the Fur clan. The cat mother-in-law curled up on the highest stone platform wrapped in a blanket. After the scene calmed down from the hustle and bustle, Grandma Cat struggled to open her eyes and looked at the young people below. Children. The faint voice of the cat mother-in-law sounded, and everyone looked at the stone platform intently. The world is changing. Although Tahir said that we can wait until the world changes to share the results, but the cat mother-in-law's voice was intermittent, as if she was about to die at any moment. Sicilian looked over with concern, and the cat mother-in-law raised her hand and shook it, indicating that she was fine. Over the years, I have shown you many outside stories and told you the past of some ancestors. You have the right to know this, and you also have the right to choose your own life. After the horns of the Fur tribe stopped, the cat mother-in-law said to the bottom, I have already told the Elephant Lord, the next stop, you go down. Back to the sea, back to the land. We originally belonged to the sea and the land. We should shuttle in the jungle and run on the grassland. But we have been trapped on the back of the elephant master for more than 1,000 years. Quote. Sicilian drew his saber and held it above his head. Meow. Everyone looked awe-inspiring. Zoe's difficult life made it very difficult for their race to continue. And the long self-blocking also made them eager to see the outside world. Ah, for ourselves, for future generations, for Fur people. Those who are willing to fight for this. Sicilian walked under the stone platform, turned around and said in a deep voice to the other compatriots, we don't want to be bound by fate, for no reason, and we shouldn't sit back and enjoy it. The world is changing. Back to the original. Home. Moan. Grandma Cat nodded towards Sicilian. A smile appeared on Grandma Cat's wrinkled face. Years of subtle influence, finally blossomed and borne fruit at this moment. Roar. What we need, we must fight for ourselves. What we desire, we must work hard for ourselves. Where the promise of the ancestors should not be extended to the descendants, let alone make the descendants sacrifice unconditionally and without reason. Now. One after another, wild cries sounded in the whale forest. Chapter 167 The Secret of Teach. G5. As the word of Dylan into Reese Rosa spread, the morale of the entire G5 was even higher. Although what he said was tantamount to sedition in the eyes of many alliance countries and the world government. But for the soldiers of G5, pirates are now nothing to fear. As the pirates themselves judged, even without Dylan Vice Admiral. Only Tahir Rear Admiral, Shiryu Rear Admiral, Tom Rear Admiral, Zephyr Instructor and Mr. Bullet are enough to wipe out the rest of the pirates. Not to mention the support of Marineford. When they first came here, the goal of many people may be to suppress the pirates, or even just hope to block the big pirates at the gate of New World. But as the G5 grows stronger, they yearn for true peace and true equality. Peace is close at hand, how can we stand idly by? Everyone's heart is crying out, crying out. The human heart is already available, where are you going to start? The others are still sticking to their posts, and only Tahir and Nuo Chigao are still with him in Dylan's office. Linlin, Dylan smiled. When he chose G5 back then, his original first goal was the Big Mom pirate group. But with the fog clearing, and some outside thrust, in the end, he took the lead in destroying the red hair pirates, with the help of Garp's hand and the traction of the straw hat. Oh, isn't it Blackbeard? Tahir doesn't think Dylan will go to Wanokuni first, because Dylan has already concluded that Wanokuni is one of the few, forbidden areas, he wants to stay in this world. Teach. Dylan glanced towards the west. It's used to contain it, and now its influence on Marineford has dropped drastically. The disadvantage of the national treasure probably lies in some kind of uncontrollable or regional restrictions. So they may not be able to take the initiative to chase Teach. Whether it's CP0 or those people in red, they may not be Teach's opponent. They are still waiting for me to do business. They also expected that I will definitely go to Mariajoy to find them. But Teach may not. He doesn't have to go, he just needs to destroy it in all directions. Okay. Tahir nodded. After the de Reese Rosa incident, the game between the two sides began. But the world government seems confident. National treasure. In addition, I still need to confirm something on Linlin. This may also be related to whether the slaughter of Teach goes well later. Blackbeard. The secret of his twin fruits. It's no secret at the top of G5 that Blackbeard has the ability to strip devil fruit. His double fruit was revealed 2 years ago after he became 4 emperors. He got the twisted fruit, which is as destructive as the shock fruit. Do not. Dylan shook his head. There should be 3, and the twisted fruit is the third one. Oh. Tahir's expression changed slightly, but then he seemed to think of something. His pirate flag is indeed 3 skeletons. In most of the pirate groups in this world, their pirate flags are formulated according to certain characteristics of the captain himself. Such as Monkey D. Luffy's straw hat. Griffin with red hair and a scar on his left eye. Whitebeard. Roger's beard. Advertisement. So if Teach described his pirate flag as 3 skulls and 8 bones early on. 8 bones, what do they represent? This is contrary to common sense. Octopus, right, or an octopus. That should be his first fruit. What I care about is actually not this. The gap between him and the national treasure cannot be bridged by many fruits. Tahir nodded. In the Battle of de Reese Rosa, Rox himself had already shown strength far beyond the power of 3 fruits. Teach. Judging from the performance of Summit War, he is too dependent on the fruit, although he has the ability of dark fruit to nullify the fruit ability. But don't forget that in addition to being a thunder fruit ability user, Dylan is also a top-notch powerhouse in hockey and swordsmanship. Why do you think Teach can obtain 3 fruit abilities? The dark blue folding fan twirled on Tahir's slender fingertips. He pondered for a moment and said, the twisted fruit is out of the scope of the discussion, because it is a relatively common paramesha fruit. Quote. Dark fruit's words, it shouldn't be, because according to our dense thread description, 5 elders once commented that no one in history has been able to take double fruits and not die. Then this gain is obviously not from dark fruit of the octopus fruit zone. After finishing speaking, Tahir's brows frowned, and actually something was wrong. It is true that octopuses have 3 hearts, but the problem is, the essence of Teach should still be human. It seems that you have thought of it. His essence is still human, unless his body is an octopus, has 3 hearts naturally, and the original blood factor structure is different from that of human beings. But I don't think so. Because Blackbeard had a childhood. Should he be born in the snow country? It could also be Drum Island. Dylan knocked on the table and sorted out his thoughts. First of all, octopus fruit can indeed make people have certain octopus characteristics. But we all know that characteristics does not represent eternal, essential transformation. For example, Dalton, he ate the Niu fruit. Does he have 4 stomachs now? Jack, he ate the mammoth fruit, but he is still a fish in essence. In addition, the fruit's ability can be imprisoned and deprived. It can be seen from this that the transformation is not essential, but additive. Unless he can reach my level. Dylan smiled. But obviously Teach is far from it. Then, if this is used as an argument, the benefits brought by the octopus fruit will be ruled out. If Teach had reached his heights, what the hell was lurking around him? 1 punch to the death of Whitebeard and that's it. There is no need to engage in so much conspiracy. Soul, did he show the power of dark fruit in the days after he killed Whitebeard Pirates Captain Sage? So at that time, he got the dark fruit, but didn't eat it right away. He was waiting for the right time. After getting the dark fruit, immediately set off to Magnetic Drum Island and find that old hag to transform his body. In Summit War, what he wanted to experiment was to capture shock fruit instead of eating the second fruit. There are 4 missing. Dylan nodded. This is the direction I need to prove, but not all. Beautiful sword Cavendish. Look. Dylan drew 3 circles on the table. There are 3 pieces missing. Tahir shook his head after recalling it for a while. It's not in the records, the first time should be Banero Island. These are photos of Blackbeard taken at different times. Soul, her personality. Well, there are still some people in this world who have multiple personalities, but can they eat double fruits? Missing teeth are different on each photo. There are no missing teeth. Tahir showed a puzzled look after just a glance. Dylan took out 3 photos. I think there are 3 complete souls in his body. And he went to Drum Island back then to improve his physical defects. 3 complete souls, with 3 real hearts. Yes, but split personality should not be regarded as multiple souls. This kind of mental illness is at most a kind of mental illness. But it is also a reference direction. Chapter 168 Multiple Souls. 3 souls, still intact. Well, Dylan pondered for a while and then said, recall carefully, in Teach, there are actually many performances related to 3, such as the pirate flag, beard, appearance changes, and his early weapons, which are the ones that scratched the red hair. Just 3 hearts may not be enough. Not to mention, it is not difficult to transplant 3 hearts to someone just because of Luo's ability. And the 3 souls alone should not work. Teach in the photos of him when he was a child, there is an action of hugging his knees and crying at night. This is very feminine, also a move. Very likely, the spirits of his 2 younger sisters rule over his body in the night. That's why he looks so different at night. Pineapple Head once said that Teach's body structure is different from ordinary people. Not sleeping should not be counted. After all, many people in the snow country do not sleep. Then it should be that Teach will show a completely different mental state at night than during the day. Dylan kept the Garuda fruit in his hand before. At that time he was still speculating on Teach's fruitful mystery. If deduced according to the clues of soul, his body may indeed have something in common with him. But with the awakening of Thunder Fruit, he no longer needs additional fruits. Never mind. Dylan shook his head. Just go to Linlin to verify it, and leave the rest to Vegapunk and Judge. Dylan raised his hand and drew a line on the table. From G5 to Toto Land. Get ready. Destroy Toto Land. IWC, Toto Land. After Charlotte Linlin founded the Big Mom Pirates, the kingdom was formed with the cake list as the core. It is rumored that in the early days, the residents here did not need to surrender their lives and souls. But as Charlotte Linlin changed day by day, it changed from a land of all races to a place of terror. Want to get shelter. Labor alone is not enough, everyone must turn in their life on time. And once Charlotte is dissatisfied with someone or loses control of herself, she will randomly extract the life or soul of other people, including his children. In today's Wanguo, although those simple-minded homits are still singing cheerful songs, everyone else is in panic. Fleet of G5. Sailing. But my mother still didn't make a decision, neither actively preparing for the battle nor running away. She seemed to have forgotten such a thing. No one else dared to mention it. Because my mother's mood has been getting worse recently. The periphery of Cake Island, Candy Island. Katakuri, what can I do? Perospero uncharacteristically refrained from licking his candy cane. Around him, there are more than a dozen core cadres of the Big Mom Pirates. Although he is the eldest son, Katakuri is actually the number 2 in the family. Katakuri shook his head. There was no way he could get past his mother to connect or ally with the beast's pirates. No one else would recognize him at all. If they run away, although the sea is vast, there are actually very few places they can go. They didn't get past Calm Belt's technology, and New World's mid-range was almost blocked by Dark Dragon. Let the younger brothers and sisters under the age of 20, those who have not participated in the war, run away. Mom sighed. Compert hesitated. Moms are very moody these days. She had just drained the life of a cadre just before they came over. Advertisement. It's all up to me. Katakuri's expression tightened. The road ahead is already a dead end, although at this time those underage brothers and sisters may not have a way out if they escape, but there is always a glimmer of hope. Even if mother blames it for this. Katakuri remembered a few years ago, when those 2 fur tribes came to steal the historical text. At that time, Dark Dragon showed a very disdainful look when he left Toto Land. It turns out that he never put us in his eyes. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Alarm bells sounded from the surrounding islands. Everyone sitting in place raised their eyebrows together. That arrives so fast. Katakuri stood up silently, picked up the trident gun next to him and walked towards the door. Katakuri, who had already walked to the door, didn't seem to hear, but just tightened the scarf around his neck. Cake Island. Dylan sat with his feet crossed across from Charlotte Linlin and smoked. Well, are you so impatient? If you want to do big things, you can't be impatient. What? Dylan flicked the ash and let out a puff of smoke. You are patient, you have nested here for decades, huh? The Charlotte Linlin in front of her is completely different from her appearance more than 30 years ago. It's more like my childhood. Tell me about you now. Should I call you Charlotte Linlin, or Lady Garmer Luo Shu? When Linlin was a teenager, he had a simple mind, thick limbs, was extremely picky about food, and could not control his own strength. But after the birthday party, she seemed to be a different person, not only a big beauty, judging from some clues of her on the rocks ship. At that time, she was not only powerful, but also thoughtful. On the contrary, the later the period, this change seems to be gradually dissipating, and it seems to have returned to the state of childhood. Unstable, easy to lose control, thinking disorder and other childhood problems all came back to her. Anything is fine. Charlotte Linlin smiled secretly. Or, there is no difference at all. Among them are many titans. When you found Linlin, you had already planned your retreat and prepared to use the power of Devil Fruit to take her body. When Charlotte Linlin was abandoned by her parents, she even began to thank the gift of fate. But she wasn't unprepared. It's a pity that you are not ready yet. There was an accident at the birthday party. Linlin not only broke out conquerors, but her body is not something you can compete with. But as the decades of dealings rolled down, she grasped more and more of the dark history of the Marine and world government. Who would have thought? The mind is simple, and the body is so powerful that it is exaggerated. This made Carmelite vigilant, but then she took this opportunity and reason to leave Al-Baf with those orphans. She expected that the day of reckoning was not far away. If you eat too much, you will lose control. As a dedicated human trafficker for the world government, the Carmelites provided Marine with many, high-quality resources. Dylan nodded. Since she said such a thing, it meant that it was pretty much what he expected. In the new Lamb house, in order to prevent Linlin's cravings from recurring, she works hard to keep Linlin happy and content. Here's a perfect container. Charlotte Linlin, in front of her, smiled helplessly. Just as she was preparing, the long winter solstice festival of Al Buff came. Because Linlin couldn't bear the hunger, Linlin's own cravings broke out. Escape by feigning death is her escape route. Chapter 169. None or Linlin. Out of control, Linlin uncontrollably began to devour everything in sight around him. Although Carmelite also has some skills, it is not enough to compete with the monster, Linlin. In desperation, she attached most of her soul to the next fruit. ZZ. A small puff of fireworks lit a cigarette in Charlotte Linlin's hand. I haven't smoked for a long time. I really miss it. Her posture and expression were quite different from usual. The image of an old nun gradually overlapped with the one in front of her. So when Linlin was young, he thought he had killed the nun. She would not come out except when she was hungry, and you have been trying to suppress her until you can master this body. It must be when you were on the Rock's ship, right? That's right. She didn't care that her secret was revealed, and she still carefully tasted the cigarette between her fingers. But my soul is also incomplete. Although I have the blessing of the soul fruit, I am still not Linlin's opponent, but she always thinks that she killed me, and has been living in self-blame and guilt, unwilling to wake up. Quote. Become this virtue. Dylan looked at her fat balloon body. I remember you were a big beauty when you were young. Ha 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 ha. The Carmelite laughed for a while and said, who are you referring to? Carmelite, or Linlin, although they were all beautiful when they were young. After finishing speaking, she sighed. Is there any way? Since 40 years ago, although Linlin no longer wakes up, the desire in her heart has been interfering with this body. It's true. I hurt myself. What kind of thing is equality of all races, and everyone loves each other? How can it really exist? After escaping from Garp and Roger, a crack appeared in the Carmelite's soul, and Linlin's thoughts began to affect her. Establish a no race kingdom where everyone is happy. Eat delicious desserts every day. Seeing pictures of nuns every day. Such thoughts began to disturb the Carmelites. She knew what kind of monster was sleeping in this body. Once her unsatisfied inner longing wakes her up, her soul will be crushed instantly. Because the soul fruit, the actual user is now Charlotte Linlin. In order to satisfy Linlin's desire, she can only find ways to complete the damn all nations. Eat a lot of sweets every day, and look at pictures of yourself for a while every day. In order to prevent Linlin from stimulating Linlin to wake up, she has hardly participated in any top battles in the past few decades. A good body is wasted like this, tisk. Carmelite twisted out his cigarette and looked at Dylan. Do you know why I'm telling you this? Dylan sneered, glanced at her and said, probably you think that after you are defeated, Linlin's soul will be completely awakened, or you will take the initiative to give up the dominance. In this way, the strength of this body will be greatly improved. After defeating me, you just need to continue dormant. Maybe you are sure to persuade Linlin to regain control of the body. The steel balloon, which is even more exaggerated than Kaido's body, what will it look like once it is mastered by the original owner? The smile on Carmelite's face disappeared. She was confident in Linlin's body. Even on Rock's ship, with this body, she is still a top fighting force. Your arrogance is simply beyond imagination. Maybe the world only knows that Linlin is strong, but only I know what the real Linlin looks like. After speaking, Carmelite slowly closed his eyes. The moment she closed her eyes, all the Homit's creatures around her suddenly fell to the ground. Those singing flowers, white clouds, and trees have lost their vitality. Becomes a normal plant or item. Dylan didn't move, he was feeling the change of breath on the other side. When Linlin fell into the water at Wanokuni and lost his memory. It shouldn't be a fully awakened state, it's just that the soul fruit has temporarily failed, and Carmelite's soul has been suppressed for a period of time. In that state, the two souls are still entangled. And now, it was the Carmelites who actively and completely gave up control of their bodies. Are you bullying the nun? Advertisement. An angry voice sounded. From a fat old woman came a girl's voice. Yes. Boom. Soaring conquerors burst. The marine cloak on Dylan's back fluttered in the furious air waves. The eyes of Katakori and other core cadres who were about to rush over from a distance showed a look of surprise. Mom's conquerors. Why do you bully the nun? Why do you want to destroy the beautiful world? Charlotte Linlin pressed on towards Dylan through the rubble. Okay. Dylan looked at Charlotte Linlin, whose aura was still rising, and pondered for a moment. Not enough. Combat is changeable and abilities are diverse. He can't guarantee that there is nothing in the national treasure that can suppress the element of thunder, or ability. Although he destroyed rocks and Nika with magnetic field. But gymnastics, swordsmanship, and hockey also need a standard of measurement. And the guy in front of him who claims to be the strongest defense in One Piece world is undoubtedly a very good test machine. Wait for me a moment. Dylan raised his finger and gave Linlin a pause gesture, after which his body disappeared instantly. He remembered that in Linlin's room, there were photos of the Carmelites. When Dylan returned to the outside again, Linlin's body had changed dramatically. She gets younger. But that chubby look didn't change at all. Nah. Click. The frame with the Carmelites. Photo shattered instantly, and Dylan even tore the photo inside in two. Damn. Boom. The more terrifying conquerors erupted than before, and the surrounding mountain peaks instantly shattered, even turning into powder before they could be turned into gravel. Boom. Two fists collided. Just the collision between the armed colors caused the surrounding waves to churn instantly. Those members of the Big Mom pirate group who were originally on the periphery fell to the ground one after another, and the weaker peripheral homites even disappeared directly. None. Linlin's eyes began to change, his pupils began to become circular. What? A sharp howl pierced the sky. With the ripple after wave, the small islands around the Cake Island exploded one after another. I'm going to kill you. The huge body jumped into the sky. Napoleon. Yes, Mom. The pirate horned hat on Linlin's head immediately turned into a long knife and flew into her hand after a reply. At this time, Napoleon was bigger than what Dylan had seen before, and the aura coming out of him was also more solid. Weo. Chapter 170 Grace. Clang. Shira and Napoleon collided together. Although he knew that homites would not be restrained by seastone or hockey, Dylan felt the power from above and still nodded. Words of strength alone. Pretty good. But just good. Click. The ground under Dylan's feet began to crack like a spider web, and the whole Cake Island trembled amid the roar. Prometheus. Yes, Mom. The flame homites in the sky. Prometheus flew to Napoleon's knife in an instant and then merged into one. However, the Emperor's sword, surrounding the fireworks, is more powerful at this moment. Charlotte Linlin held the hilt of the Emperor's sword high above her head with both hands. The blazing flames and the roiling heat wave caused the remaining delicacies on Cake Island and other surrounding islands to begin to melt. Oh, it's much stronger than what I've seen before. Is it true that the original owner is more powerful when he controls the body? The guy who ruined his dream, go to death. Swish. Zizi. The red thunder spiraled up along the body of Shira's blade. Dylan pulled Shira in a circle in front of him and then scattered the thunder light. The thick conquerors began to condense on Shira's sword. The originally pitch-black blade became more and more gloomy and empty. Conviction reincarnation. Blade Mother's flame. Shira, who was spinning vigorously, and Napoleon, who was burning with fireworks, collided again. Mother. Ding. Napoleon's blade slanted, and the flames attached to it were also dimmed under the conqueror's impact. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. A series of sparks burst out. Dylan's knife point couldn't penetrate her arm covered with conquerors. The berserk Linlin didn't seem to want to be complacent, and immediately picked up Napoleon and slashed towards him. Swish. Napoleon cut the air, and at this gap, the hockey on Shira Dao's body recondensed and compressed. A hair-like slash was quietly triggered. Conviction Kunlun. Laugh. The steel balloon was pierced instantly. Although the notch is very subtle, Dylan's body flashed into the distance. Kunlun still retains a strong kinetic energy when it penetrates Kaido and rocks. But at the moment of piercing Linlin's body, it was almost castrated. Is this guy really human? The monster is not as hard as her, is it? Although for Linlin's huge body, the slight wounds are almost negligible, but being injured. This is the first time in my life. Damn, Zeus. Yes, Mom. The Emperor's sword changed again. Thundercloud Zeus wrapped Napoleon and then turned into a hilt. Flame, thunder, and shock erupted at the same time. Sound cannon. The laser wrapped in thunder and flames shot at Dylan, but the laser disappeared in an instant before reaching Dylan's body. Boom. A small island in the distance was reduced to ashes in the light cannon. Before Linlin could recondense the second light cannon, Dylan's body appeared in front of him again. Try a new move. Dylan didn't attack the gap pierced by Kunlun directly, but struck towards her head. He held the handle of the knife horizontally with both hands, and an invisible force spread out from the tip of the knife. Linlin's pupils are slightly dilated. That breath. In the violently inflated breath, a phantom of a palace like 9 days away emerged. Mingguang slash. Before he could dodge in time, Linlin poured all his strength into the blade of the Emperor's sword. Advertisement. Napoleon's originally ferocious appearance became even more terrifying, and the entire blade almost turned into the shape of a chainsaw. Before the blade tips of the two weapons collided, a ball of light visible to the naked eye appeared in the middle. The Cake Island, which had already been cracked, began to shake instantly. The entire island was torn apart, except for the area around where the two of them stood. Everything else had disappeared without a trace and turned into the surface of the sea. Conviction Ling Xiao. Click. Mom. After a strange roar, cracks began to appear on Napoleon's blade. Impossible. The voice of the Carmelites appeared. With the fragmentation of Napoleon, Charlotte Linlin's original soul appeared incomplete. Their souls were entangled again. None. Laugh. Shira sank into her throat. You. The Carmelites, who once again gained dominance over their bodies, were terrified. Didn't even use the ability. No. He deliberately didn't use his abilities. Conviction Fengdu. Shi. A strange sound sounded, and Charlotte Linlin's body gradually shriveled. As her body shriveled, Shira's blade became more and more monstrous, with crimson in the darkness and emptiness. Demon blade. Pat. The body that had been turned into dry wood crashed to the ground. Dylan pulled out Shira and looked down at the body whose life breath had almost dissipated in front of him. Carmelite. You are from I am. Carmelite's already cloudy eyes lit up, but before he could answer, Shira's blade pierced her skull. Wano Kuni. Looking at the burning life card in his hand, Kaido fell silent. Lin. Although he didn't stay on the Rock's ship for a long time. Although he was strong at that time, he was still far behind Shiki, Newgate, and John. After all, he is only in his 20s. During that time, it was Lin who had been protecting him. Why don't you come to Wano Kuni to find me? Is this your pride? At the end of the Valley of the Gods incident, the Rock's pirate group disbanded, and Lin gave him an extremely powerful fruit when they parted. Yu fruit, phantom beast species, and blue dragon form. He didn't know where the fruit Lin came from. But he also kept this gift in his heart. Joey Boy. Who is it? Could it really be that marine kid? Odin's diary does not include Joey Boye's name. He only said that in 20 years, someone will come to Wano Kuni to liberate this country and make this country a nation. And that person is Joey Boy, who can bring dawn to the world. A footstep sounded from a distance. Cha-cha, marine kid. What? Come to cut seppuku, whether you're Joey Boy or not. Fragments of countless ships are floating on the sea, and many islands have been reduced to wrecks or leveled. After Dylan put Shira back into the sheath, the surrounding islands of Cake Island were in dilapidated condition. The surrounding sea areas have been blocked. Katakuri wearing Martin boots stood at the forefront, followed by a group of members of the Big Mom pirate group. Rage C, Tom and Devil's Air, Bullet are on both sides. If you are not, I will use your life to repay Linlin's kindness. Since the man is standing, it means that the mother has. Cha-cha, they don't know what's going on Cake Island, but come on quickly, there is no escape at all. Chapter 171 Life and Death. Katakuri didn't relax at Dylan's teasing. He got more nervous. The intelligence capabilities of the Big Mom pirates are among the best in this sea. So he also knew some legends about the man in front of him. If he starts to say some unintelligible one-liners to the pirates, then this person is basically close to death. After taking a few steps forward, Katakuri's footsteps paused, and he thrust the trident into the ground beside him. I'm here to seek a way out for my younger brothers and sisters. The children of the Charlotte family standing further away showed nervous expressions on their faces. The Dark Dragon, the nightmare of this pirate, is there really hope? What are you asking for? Dylan glanced at Katakuri. This person is a very responsible guy, and he loves his younger brothers and sisters quite a lot, which is a pity. Born in the wrong place. Katakuri shook his head. You are the winner, everything here is yours, whether it is the red history text, the treasure, including our lives, I have nothing to exchange. Dylan laughed. You can see clearly, yes, everything here is mine now. So how are you going to save your younger siblings? Katakuri untied the scarf around his neck, and said in a deep voice, by your justice. Justice. After slaughtering Linlin, Dylan seemed to be in a good mood, and he was not in a hurry to wipe out the rest of the guys immediately. He looked at Katakuri with interest and said with a smile, you are a pirate, and you actually want to use justice to coerce me. It's not coercion. Katakuri shook his head. Your intelligence force is equally strong. You should know that many of them have never done evil, neither participated in robbery, nor have any bad intentions. They. Katakuri gritted his teeth and said with difficulty, they were just born here, this shouldn't be the reason why they were executed. Dylan was silent for a moment. To be honest, there were indeed some people on the boat behind Katakuri who had never done evil. The Big Mom pirates are different from other pirates. Most of the other pirate groups are composed of adults, who become pirates spontaneously and voluntarily. And it was inevitable that some of them had participated in looting and killing. But those people in the distance, some are only 10 years old or even younger. They have no choice of their origin, and a person's origin is indeed not enough reason to execute him. Just like before East Blue, Straw Hats and Ace went to sea. Dylan didn't choose to kill them when they were young and before they committed a great evil. On the one hand, it is because they do not want to conflict with the power of Tinder prematurely. On the other hand, it is also because, even if I know the trajectory of history, I don't want to obliterate a person without committing a major crime. In the end, I also need to use their hands to promote history, complete the summit war, and once again shake the foundation of world government. Yes, as for who can go, you choose yourself. If you choose the wrong one, you will execute them all, and the other. Dylan glanced around. As the children of Linlin, they will sit together. If they live in compliance with the law, they will return to their status as civilians in the next generation. If someone harbors resentment or has any bad intentions. Dylan shook his cloak, leaned on Shira's handle with both hands and looked into the distance. I'm a person who is afraid of trouble, understand? Katakuri was silent at first. His original plan was that if the Dark Dragon agreed, he could let some younger siblings live. But, if, continuous production, he turned around with difficulty, past the cadres behind, and looked at the young brothers and sisters on the boat. Normad. Katakuri fell silent after reading the 5 names. Others. Either the combatants participated in the looting, or they have a bad personality, and it is inevitable that they will implicate others in the days to come. 5 thin bodies stepped off the boat under Perospero's gesture. The other people on the boat looked at their beloved second brother with disbelief. Advertisement. They was abandoned. I do not want. A sharp and piercing sound sounded from the ship. Charlotte Flamp, holding a blowgun, has red eyes. Why can't I live? Obviously I'm so cute too. Flamp. Chi Feng, who was standing behind her, sighed, trying to reach out to comfort his young sister. Don't touch me, you ugly. Gah, Katakuri clenched his fist. This is a hard-won opportunity. Although that man is very kind to the people, but to the pirates. Snapped. Shi Feng slapped Flan Pei on the face. That's why you can't live. Flamp snorted. The short sword in Shi Feng's hand has been inserted into her heart. Don't blame me, Flamp. This is the chance Katakuri's big brother gave them to survive. If you die by my hands, you will suffer less. Tears flowed from the corners of Shi Feng's eyes. She is also a minister. Not eligible for life. Call. A slash rushed towards Dylan, who was sitting in the distance. But Dylan didn't look up because a figure had already blocked the slash. Cha-cha. Dylan looked up. Katakuri looked gloomy. Let me finish it myself. You're crazy, Katakuri. There are so many of us. Why surrender? No. Why do you want to be slaughtered? Looking at the crazy Charlotte Kato in the crowd, Katakuri closed his eyes slightly. The people below the boat were faintly divided into two camps. Being killed like this, it's better to give it a go. More and more people stood to the left. The trident spear had already been broken, and behind him was a pile of corpses. I don't want to either, but, no, Big Brother is already very good. Bling, cough cough, soaring conquerors burst. Most of those who remained on board passed out, and those on the left took up arms. Big Brother. Katakuri couldn't care less about the blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Boom. A gust of wind blows, and Katakuri rushes into the crowd. The woman was still alive. Seeing Katakuri walking towards her, she smiled slightly. After speaking, Katakuri dragged his heavy body to a tall, ugly woman. Several fatal wounds have left his body shattered. He stretched out his remaining right hand and pressed Buling's shoulder. Don't be resentful, forget everything here, be a ordinary person. Quote. Sitting side by side, the siblings fell into a deep sleep. You, cough cough, you are the older sister, you have to take good care of them. Bree, sorry. This time, Big Brother failed to protect you again. Chapter 172 Restoring the Country. When the G5 warship arrived, only 5 children of Dylan and Charlotte's family remained in that small area. Just before boarding the ship, Buling glanced back. Please wait for me. Okay. Bu Ling wiped away the tears on her face with the back of her hand, and walked in front of her 4 siblings. Close your eyes. The 4 younger siblings closed their eyes one after another. Mom is dead. Katakuri's big brother died too. The moment they closed their eyes, Buling pulled out film-like things from their foreheads. The whole process lasted nearly half an hour. PH. When the 4 siblings fainted on the ground, Bu Ling carried them one by one onto the warship with difficulty. Memory fruit. Did they extract most of their memories? After panting for a while, Bryant said with a pale face, I have erased most of their memories. They will not remember everything today, and they will not remember that they are the Big Mom Pirates group, people. Let them live an ordinary life. The few people selected by Katakuri are all innocent and young children. Looking at Charlotte Breen, who also fell on the ground, Dylan thought for a while and then carried her to the warship. Send it to Germa and tell Judge that this is his daughter-in-law. Just after Dylan left, the warships led by Bullet and Tom attacked the nations. But it didn't kill them all. As Katakuri said, Toto Land is actually a kingdom, and many people are just born here. Or civilians hoping for asylum, they use their life as rent to live here. The rebels were executed, the surrenders were taken into custody, waiting for the screening trial after returning to G5. Although it wasn't that Dylan forced Katakuri to kill others, Dylan was still a little upset after returning from Toto Land. Card 2. UB *******D. Feeling the ups and downs of Dylan's emotions, Nuo Chigao gently put a cup of tea in front of him. Man Shueli specially prepared it for you. She is very worried about you. After receiving the luxuriant fruit from the CP organization, Dylan was soon handed over to the Dongtata tribe. This makes the jungle at the center of the Greenbit Kingdom even bigger. There are also more rare medicinal materials in it. Dylan sighed and took a sip from his teacup. What's the matter, brother? Did something go wrong on the way to wipe out the Big Mom Pirates? Although Nuochi Gao is Dylan's civilian adjutant, in fact, when she participated in the meeting, she was more responsible for recording and conveying orders. She also rarely expresses her opinion. He made me a deal. No, they made me a deal together. Some of those cadres who resisted should have discussed it with Ka-er long ago, and some deliberately incited others. Let Ka-er kill his siblings in front of him to save those innocent children. If they attack him, then he can justifiably execute everyone present without any scruples. But Ka-er played a bitter scene with them. With their own lives. It's really a family that loves each other. After listening to Dylan's description, Nuo Chigao fell into shock. Them. Advertisement. Don't waver, Nuo Chigao, Dylan said in a deep voice. Although regardless of their standpoint, Ka-er and the others do have a moving side, but just like the restrictions I gave him, adult guys already have the opportunity to choose their destiny and have room for thinking. Since they stay in Toto Land, be prepared to die. Nuo Chigao nodded. The brilliance of human nature and the crimes committed cannot cancel each other out. This is the consistent guideline of G5. Yes, but he is a good big brother. Same as big brother. After adding tea to Dylan, Nuo Chigao saw that his mood gradually calmed down and asked again. Then why didn't big brother kill everyone in the first place? Or order the fleet to attack. Although this idea is extremely offensive, it may be a feasible method. After all, in the eyes of most people in the world, being born evil is a sin in itself. I hesitated. Dylan sighed. I don't know if I should do that, so I didn't do it immediately after Linlin died. Maybe I was expecting that to happen. Dylan looked at Noki Gao. The little girl 10 years ago is now 22 years old. Ka is right. Some of them couldn't choose to be born, and they have never done evil. If I execute them according to my personal likes and dislikes, it will aggravate the expansion and amplification of my evil thoughts. I will try to avoid this from happening, and use my powers carefully. Otherwise, I will become the new, celestial dragons. Nokigo. Dylan looked at his grown-up sister and sighed softly. I hope that the world I leave to you is a truly equal and peaceful place, not a cruel world centered on the will of a certain person or a certain group of people. Quote. When I really kill people one day based on my likes and dislikes. Probably the day of parting is not far away. Although Nuo Chigao rarely participated in the discussion, Dylan did not avoid her in many matters, and she also vaguely guessed something from Mr. Tahir. But when Dylan said it herself, she still felt empty in her heart. Will you come back? Maybe. Dylan smiled. I want to see the outside world, pursue a more exciting life and. Dylan paused. If I am still in this world, the world will inevitably run according to my will, which is not good. But if I leave, whether it is Tahir, Shiryu, Zephyr. Even if their hearts change, yes, they also need to consider the consequences. This is a warning within a short period of time, at least within 100 years. A burst of indescribable sadness welled up in Nuo Chigao's heart. Next door to G5 Alloy Workshop. And, good-hearted. Although he knew it was because of Ayu's busy studies, but. On the top floor of the fortress. There was always an ominous premonition in his heart. Otherwise, the evil dragon will take the lead. Back then in Bianli village, he saw Dylan's love for Ayu, a strong man who could make Shira submit. Time was running out when she escaped, or she didn't know who Joey Boy was. The fate of Wanokuni. Through the window, Tiangashan Fike looked at the towering G5 fortress on the top of the mountain. Dao Zi, have you found those helpers from the past? He knew Ayu, so he believed, on the day of the prophecy. Must be controlled by the Kazuki family. With the idea of investing, he donated second-generation Onitsu to Dylan, and entrusted Ayu to Dylan. Dylan glanced at the location of the alloy workshop and snorted coldly. This man will definitely go to Wanokuni to help the Kazuki family restore the country. Recently, the number of times Ayu came to look for him has decreased significantly. Tiangoshan Fike looked at those swords over there and sighed inwardly. Time is running out, hurry up. Chapter 173 Atonement. Why? Momosuke looked at the sea in bewilderment. Whenever they tried to leave the island, those strange people came with big ships and bombarded them. On several occasions they even came close to destroying their ships. Kanamon's face was gloomy. Those people are blocking them. But why no direct attack? Raizo, Cat Viper, Anuarashi. All their life cards were burned. Has something happened to Zo? Is it from Kaido? Your Majesty Momonosuke, we can't wait any longer, must return to Wanokuni. Hearing Wanokuni's words, Momonosuke had a frightened look on his face. Now, go back. Not as good, Your Highness. Kanamon knelt on the ground, and Kanjuro could only kneel down together when he saw this, but there was an imperceptible hint of viciousness at the corner of his mouth. Although it is very difficult. But I am waiting for the undead to fight to the death. I am waiting. I will assist His Highness to regain Wanokuni's position as general. Momonosuke's body trembled for a while, but, Kaido is still there. Your Highness, Kanamon sighed. We must believe in Mrs. Toki's prophecy. Someone will definitely come to help us. You have inherited Lord Udian's blood, and you will definitely be able to revive the name of the Kazuki family. On a warship in the distance, Iron stood on the deck looking at the beach. The two weirdos were kneeling in front of the child, kowtowing non-stop. Next time they sail in the direction of Wanokuni, let them go. Yes, In tightened the autumn water in his hand. Although her swordsmanship was born out of Dylan, it also incorporates Shimotsuki Ryoma's dragon sword art. Dylan told her after the Derice Rosa incident. Soon after the Battle of Wanokuni, she was one of the men who had to fight. Because her autumn water and dragon slaying sword technique will have some special effects there. As for the specific role, Dylan didn't say clearly, and Ain didn't ask much. She believed in Dylan, from beginning to end. This sea has changed too much because of his arrival. She doesn't want to be a hero. In her heart, she is the same as Shiryu. It is a sword that does not require thinking. Dark Dragon, the sharp sword in Adam's Dylan's hand. Drum Island. Dylan sat in the palace, and the Gaiman brothers stood on both sides. Dalton sat on Dylan's flank. After the Blackbeard attack, Dylan never set foot on the island of the Drum again. Although he has supported Drum Island a lot. But there was always a string in Dalton's heart. And this time Dylan's arrival finally made the strings in his heart relax slightly. Before the Battle of the Sabayati Archipelago, Dalton inexplicably waged war on Alabasta. Although it ended hastily because of the arrival of the Battle of the Sabayati Archipelago, the Kingdom of Chia became a big country comparable to Alabasta because of that lightning raid. What were you doing before? Although Tahir once analyzed Dalton's move to enter Dylan's sight. But Dylan himself still has some doubts. Dalton. Buffalo turned into bison. No, this guy is originally a bison fruit. Prepare for war. Facing Dylan's question, Dalton was silent for a while, and answered honestly. Oh, Dylan glanced at Dalton. This guy, although his appearance hasn't changed much in 4 or 5 years, his temperament has become completely different from before. In the past, he always had a silly smile on his face. Also euphemistically called kind and gentle. But now. Advertisement. Dylan looked at the calmness in his expression and the rush of life in his body. Kind of looks like a king. This world, the proper world of diodes, are just downright evil and depraved like Wapple. Or be kind and weak like Cobra and King Riku. All the kings seem to have no normal and talented ones. As long as there are 1 or 2 Mingjun, not to mention Li Er and Brother Zheng. Even Zhu Chongba and Tianxiang Meteorite Shower, who started with a bowl, wouldn't be able to live their lives in such a virtuous way. Just put the soft king like Cobra in his hometown. That's right, it's for future generations to dig graves. Good guy here, Runjun. Mingjun. Dalton didn't bother Dylan watching Dylan's wandering, and still sat respectfully aside. It is not only him who has changed, but the whole country. Especially in the past year or so, after the G5 toured the park to clean up. The development of the Chia Kingdom has been beyond imagination. With the support of Greenbit and some mysterious scientists, the title of Nation of Medicine returned to the Kingdom of Chia. Strong medical level, rich but not extravagant lifestyle. United people, even Alabasta next door is struggling in the face of the increasingly powerful Chia Kingdom. Paradise shouldn't be a problem, Dalton. Dylan turned slightly. Ambition should be limited. Without sufficient background, blind expansion will only accelerate the collapse of the country. The territory of the Kingdom of Chia, that ends here. Dylan stood up and walked towards the door, the howling wind and snow poured into the castle along the door. Looking at the mountains in the distance and the strong soldiers outside the castle, Dylan said in a deep voice, if you want to participate in the war, I won't stop you, but you have to remember that the purpose of war is not aggression. Following the disappearance of Dylan, the Guilman brothers looked at each other and walked out. On the distant mountain peaks, Dylan stands in the witch's castle. Ah, it came so soon. I thought it would be later. Kerha was sitting by the windowsill with a cigarette in her mouth. Although she said she was surprised, her expression was very calm. Come to find an answer. Dylan took a look at her, this woman who lived for 140 years with a human body. I never look for answers from my enemies. Outside the castle, strong winds and blizzard filled the sky, and Kerha nodded. Doesn't seem to be surprised by the answer either. Come to finish me. The cigarette in her hand was flickered by the strong wind blowing in. Do not. Dylan glanced at the medical equipment around him. I'm not one of those guys on Mariajoy, and I don't think can do anything in the future. Hearing Dylan's words, Kerha froze for a moment. After Dylan warned her that year, she never left the Chia Kingdom. Occasionally going down the mountain is just to discuss medicine with the new medical team or to supplement some necessary living supplies. Dylan also thought about whether she would leave the Chia Kingdom to go to the Sabayati archipelago or to Reese Rosa to help the Straw Hats, but she didn't. It seems that after helping Teach to transform her body, the agreement between them was cleared up. Although you didn't come to seek answers, but. After pondering for a while, Kuleha said, the Drum Kingdom has received favors from the D clan, and we have promised them that when someone from the D clan comes to ask for help, we will repay it with medical skills. Quote. This agreement has been completed. That's why I didn't kill you. Having not participated in the previous 2 fights, has proven her stance and attitude. Although Mariajoy's Dark Thread once said that 5 Elders also has a certain amount of attention to her. But just like what Dylan said to Golden Lion back then. He didn't want to dig too much into history beyond necessary information. Nor does he want to bury history. When this is over, I will release Tony Chopper at my discretion. But he and you must be subject to some level of supervision. The crime of destroying Eni's lobby. Use medical skills to redeem. Chapter 174 Sakazuki. The news of the demise of the Big Mom pirates flew all over the world like the wind. But at this time all camps are used to it. After all. Even if they rank among the 4 emperors today, their battle lineup is far from the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago. What's more, some people speculate that the mysterious man who fought fiercely with the Dark Dragon in Reese Rosa was a man who was almost invincible. Rox D. Zebek. Although ordinary people or young people don't know much about him, with the development of recent topics, people are more and more amazed at the power of Dark Dragon. Along with it, there is speculation about Mariajoy. What kind of power do you have? Unexpectedly, you can still remain indifferent at this time. Marineford. When Dylan appeared at the gate of the fortress, everyone gave him reverent and fiery eyes. A true marine hero, a true marine hero. With justice in his heart, fearless of power, he almost changed the pattern of the sea by himself. Many times, they even long for this man to lead them. Not that Marshal Sakazuki is bad, but the man in front of him is too dazzling and outstanding. He is not only a fearless soldier, but also a wise leader from the perspective of G5 and the development of his kingdom. That's amazing, little Dylan. As if waiting for him specially, Guillaume greeted him from the front the moment Dylan stepped through the gate, and walked side by side with him. Dylan turned his head slightly to look at her. Guillaume and Cake actually rarely appear in the headquarters. As admirals alternates, they are more often on missions. Especially this year, under the double attack of Sakazuki and Dylan, a considerable part of the New World has been included in the Marines' territory. The first half of New World is not much different from Paradise. It is very rare to see the guy who blatantly flies the pirate flag. Are you waiting for me here? Guion big sister. Yeah. Guion gave him an annoyed look. Crane big sister said that you will come back soon, so people have been staring at you. I'll meet you guys for tea after I finish seeing Sakazuki. Dylan can probably guess what Grandma Crane is thinking, the Marine of the previous generation. Dylan didn't mean much to them, including Garp. If Garp knows the current affairs and quits Marine early, Dylan will not ruin his reputation. Pity. Occupying the title of hero, he frequently adds negative influence to Marine. It even affects the next generation. As for Sengoku, Crane, and Zephyr, Dylan can understand. It doesn't matter whether they are conservative or balanced. When the strength is insufficient, it is commendable to be able to work hard to maintain peace. Marine. During the Peace Roundtable meeting, he once explained that Marine may not be an enemy, but he cannot be regarded as an ally either. Fortunately, through his hard work over the years, he has achieved a reputation far beyond Garp. And Sakazuki. Dylan, who was standing on the lifting platform, nodded slightly in his heart. Brother Go is a pure soldier, and righteousness is above all else in his heart. Otherwise, just choose another person to become the marshal, whether it is Desert King or Smoker. Advertisement. Not to mention being kicked out of Marine, at least they have to be sent to the 4 seas to go fishing. But Brother Go not only did not embarrass them in the original work, but even the rank of Desert King soared all the way. A guy who has been in the Marine for 2 years and is not clean at all, he was promoted from a soldier to a colonel. Even mastered sword troops. If it wasn't for the sun god Lightspeed becoming the Emperor of the Sea, Dylan even suspected that the Deserter King was the protagonist. After all, the sun god has been hanging up in East Blue for more than 10 years before going out. The Deserter King has stepped into the upper echelon with half a foot in 2 years from a slave on a pirate ship. It is hard not to make people wonder if there is some dirty whole transaction behind it. Guion looked at Dylan next to him, who seemed to be thinking about anything and didn't bother him anymore. After returning to Marineford after finishing the task a few days ago, the Crane big sister specifically asked her not to go out for the time being. He's very busy, and he doesn't have much time left. Let's see him when he comes over. Everyone can see how busy Dylan is, otherwise Sengoku wouldn't have said something like, I didn't achieve a lot during my tenure as a marshal, when meeting him. But everyone knew that even though he was so powerful now, every time he came back to Marineford, he would not fly directly to the marshal's office. Although there is no need to make an appointment, he will still follow the normal process to see the marshal. A small detail made everyone's opinion of him more profound. Powerful but not arrogant. I'll make some tea and wait for you. After reaching the top floor, Guion nodded towards Dylan and turned to the other side. By the time I got to Sakazuki's office, the others had already left. How long will it take? Sakazuki cut to the chase. Dylan walked across to him and sat down, pondering for a moment. About 2 months. Sakazuki. Marine. Don't worry, Sakazuki looked at Dylan seriously. That guy Sora, he's not as incompetent and stupid as you think. The others. Do not. Dylan shook his head. Sakazuki, I think, you and the rest of Marine should continue to maintain order. Reason. But this both ensures a balanced force and prevents the Zephyr from endlessly grasping power. I've recently felt something very different. Then my life is too regretful. Dylan looked at the giant world map behind him. In other words, with blood to suck, Zephyr can still maintain its peak lifespan for decades. Dylan was a little puzzled. Mariajoy's war is not determined by the number of people, even the vice admirals of the headquarters are of no help in the past, besides. Get Zephyr back to replace me. Because once the war starts, if people from G5 and Marineford gather together, countless villains will definitely take advantage of the troubled waters to fish. There is no doubt about this. Looking at the scar on Sakazuki's face, Dylan was silent for a moment. I still can't grasp the duration of that battle, so someone must maintain the order of the sea. He should know that with his current strength, the situation will not change much. Why is Sakazuki so obsessed with going to war? Zephyr is indeed a good choice, although the vampire fruit will restore Zephyr's youth, but his actual lifespan will not increase too much. I'm going back to nature. Dylan, if I die worthless. I can feel. Sakazuki looked up at Dylan. As if sensing Dylan's confusion, Sakazuki puffed out a puff of smoke. Chapter 175 Marine's Position. Dylan frowned. Of course he knew what it felt like, he had had that premonition back then. The connection with this world is getting closer and closer, and the strength is growing almost explosively. But what followed was a deep tug of the soul. But what was pulled out was the soul of Adam's Dylan. But his soul became more pure and flawless during the tempering. Sakazuki katakana middle dot 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 has he touched the threshold of Logia's true awakening. Zone and Paramesha only need to be able to counteract the control of the bloodline factor to complete the real awakening, and thus become phantom beasts. If the phantom beast species can devour the will of the gods, it can also be awakened smoothly. In other words, being devoured by the will of the gods is also an awakening in another sense. But Logia will return to nature when she truly awakens. Rox once said that no one has ever been able to cross this natural barrier in history. As an alien soul, Dylan doesn't know how to help him, because they are fundamentally different. It should not be possible to make up for it with willpower. After all, people with great perseverance are not uncommon in this world. Maybe something else. Maybe there is a way. He vaguely had an idea. Although it is a bounden duty for a soldier to go to the country, Dylan doesn't want him to return to nature. Do not. Sakazuki shook his head. It's too late. Because I have already touched it, I don't know how you did it, but the mystery in it must not be achieved in a short time. It is good. Dylan nodded. His guess is not necessarily accurate. If he fails, it will leave Sakazuki with irreparable regrets. Instead of that, it's better to let him get what he wants. As he left, Dylan saw the calm look on Sakazuki's face. A little late. However, a man who strives for his ideals all his life should not be deprived of his right to die. When Dylan walked into Suru Vice Admiral's office, Gion had made tea and was waiting for him. Has Sakazuki made a decision too? Dylan just took a sip from his teacup when Crane Vice Admiral asked softly. Okay. The great staff of Naval Headquarters, the materials and information he has are only slightly inferior to Mariajoy. It is not surprising that she knows these secrets, but it is even more strange that she does not know. What about you? Or, what do you think? So far, many things have become clear. Mariajoy sits firmly on the red line and waits for the Dark Dragon to challenge for the throne. The throne of the world. I told him that Marine doesn't need to participate in the war, and he should do his part to maintain the order of the sea. Dylan gently put down his teacup. And first, don't think Marine is suitable to appear as a rebel. Our enemy is in Mariajoy, which is the celestial dragons. Marine's enemy is the evil forces on the sea. The remaining pirates, gangsters, human traffickers, bandits, and robbers. These are what Marine needs to deal with and suppress. In fact, Dylan still has his own worries. Marine is a complete and relatively independent military organization. They have not experienced the baptism and sublimation of ideas like the Peace Round Table Conference. Although their current beliefs are trustworthy, it is for peace. But once they participate in the rebellion, and sabotage, and win, it is inevitable that no one will have the idea of, the Emperor takes turns, come to my house this year. This is actually not unheard of in Marine, Monka, rats, overkill. These people are typical examples. Menka is just a colonel in the branch, and he can do his best there like a local emperor, and even ask the people to give him a statue. The corruption and depravity in it can be imagined. It's more and more rampant in the chaotic West Blue. Advertisement. And there are also some guys from mixed backgrounds in Marine. For example, the two under Hina, why did they join Marine? Because of Hina's beauty. Other senior generals also carried private goods more or less. From the current point of view, Marine can be used as a support, but not as the main combatant. Crane Vice Admiral nodded, not denying Dylan's words. Little Dylan. Gion hesitated after refilling tea for Dylan and said, are you really sure? Although we don't know what the national treasure is, but. With the strength Dylan showed at this time, Mariajoy remained unmoved. What is conveyed in this is the confidence to despise everything. That's one of the reasons why Marine can't go to war. Dylan smiled and said to Gion, if I fail, the pirate wave will definitely come back in a few years. When that day comes, the world still needs Marine to protect it. After Dylan left, Vice Admiral fell silent. Gion also frowned slightly. He is right, but it's a pity. Crane Vice Admiral sighed softly. Of course, in her wisdom, Dylan didn't fully trust Marine. Maybe Dylan didn't trust Marine in the first place. But during the Summit War, the split between the two sides became more serious. He is just using the position of Marine to fulfill his long-cherished wish. Can this be his fault? He brought unprecedented prestige and change to Marine, and he took Marine to unprecedented heights. This is also very good. Marine really needs to stay behind. Dylan walked to the periphery, and just as he flew high into the sky, he saw a yellow figure in the distance. Oh, Dylan, long time no see. Pelusolino was floating high in the sky looking at Dylan, who didn't have much expression on his face. Isn't it another order from above? Pelusolino shook his head. No, the higher-ups don't have time to talk to me recently, they're all waiting for you. They are waiting for me, what are you waiting for? What if I fail? Okay, it's Vegapunk. He said that if you really achieve something big, I hope you can take him to the Valley of the Gods. Dylan narrowed his eyes slightly. Our 5 elders. After all, he is not the real speed of light. If he jumps backwards, others can't catch up with him, and he can kill him easily. Pelusolino said slowly. There is nothing special, just helping people with a sentence. If I have to say it, it should be similar to rays or rays of light. From Dylan's point of view, Pelusolino's threat level is very low at present. When he awakens, there is a high probability that he will return to nature. Does not represent light or brightness. Hearing Pelusolino's words, Dylan looked at him with a half smile. Pelusolino and Vegapunk. I am. Although I still have a distance from the speed of light, it is definitely more than enough to crush him. Today Dylan doesn't really want to pursue his position, sparkling fruit. If you fail, Pelusolino raised his hand and stroked his stubble-covered chin, then pretend I haven't seen you today. Is this a way to make a statement? Chapter 176 Iu. West Blue. The top of the extremely cold place. Where's Joey Poey? A cold woman sat on the glacier and looked at the visitors in front of her. Joey Bowie's reincarnation failed. The redhead looked at the woman in front of him. Joey Poi's partner, Parvati. Parvati looked at the redhead coldly. The drum of liberation sounded suddenly, and then disappeared suddenly. There must have been a huge change in this. I remember that Joey Boye had arranged everything, so, did you guys not execute it properly? No. Facing Parvati's questioning, the redhead didn't show much fear. He shook his head and said indifferently, everything is carried out according to the prophecy. Joey Poiliu in Raftals, prophecy. But a person who was no longer in the prophecy disrupted all the plans, and Joey Poi's reincarnation was also cut off by him. Guys from the 20 Kings. The red hair shook his head. No. And, soon he will challenge the throne of the 20 Kings. Parvati frowned slightly, destroyed Joey Boy's plan, and challenged the 20 Kings. After pondering for a while, Parvati asked, in today's world, is there a country without a king? That country is powerful and has strict laws and regulations. Hearing her question, the redhead thought for a while and shook his head. As far as I know, there is no such place. Even in the kingdom under that person's rule, there is a royal family. Strangeness. The doubt in Parvati's eyes became heavier. Who could it be? Parvati pondered for a long time but did not come to a conclusion, and she was not sure whether that person had changed her position from the original comrade in arms, or if the descendants of other 20 kings were trying to monopolize the throne. What is his representative power? There was a faint pain in the red-haired chest. There are many physical skills, sword skills, hockey, but the most powerful should be the power of thunder and lightning. Impossible. Parvati's pupils shrank, and she subconsciously refuted the redhead's statement. In that distant era, in that era when there were so many heroes, no one had done it. To what extent? Parvati's thinking suddenly became a little confused. Could it be that the person who cut off Joey Boy's reincarnation just touched the edge, then he is not qualified to challenge the 20 kings at all? But, I can't judge, but according to the story that has been handed down, he broke free from the shackles of nature. Parvati's body straightened slightly. An unprecedented god of nature. Simultaneously with Joey Bowie's reincarnation. What are you going to do? She has been asleep for hundreds of years, and she doesn't understand the current situation. Although the guy in front of her looks very weak, since she is the banner bearer. Although Joey Boye's reincarnation has been cut off, we can take advantage of that man's war with the 20 kings to surprise them. Even if he is the god of nature, the national treasure may not be able to restrain him power. When the time comes. Parvati looked slightly puzzled at the crazy guy in front of him. It is indeed the banner bearer, but how did such a vicious and violent guy become the banner bearer? Did something really go wrong with Joey Boye's arrangement? There is no other choice now, and now they have woken up. Although it is far from the original plan, fortunately this guy in front of him is right. Now the situation is delicate, and it may be possible to win in one fell swoop while the other two parties are both hurting. You are one of Joey Boy's most important partners. Although I have contacted the others, some still need you to explain the situation. The one sleeping in the swamps of West Blue insists on waiting for the call of the drum of liberation. Others are also somewhat unclear. Only this woman in front of me, she was Joey Bowie's original follower, and she was also a powerhouse second only to Joey Bowie in strength. Only by her coming forward can those guys be convinced. Advertisement. Parvati looked at the red hair, and he instinctively disliked the aura of this guy in front of him, but she still agreed. Just when the redhead breathed a sigh of relief, Parvati said in a deep voice, after this is done, we must guide Joey Boy back again, next time. No failure. Maria Joy. How about Greenbit? Vic has already arranged it, and he has not changed. Humph. The bearded five elders snorted coldly, seemingly uneasy. He has been with Adams Dillon for almost 10 years, and according to the original information, he was born in East Blue. This has to be doubted. Does Adams Dillon have some way of changing his age? Or, is he a beneficiary of the Operation Ageless? But this possibility was instantly overturned. It shouldn't be. We have records of the previous holders of Op fruit, and it has never stopped. God of nature. No wonder he has the courage to challenge the throne. Five elders, who had a birthmark on his forehead, sneered. Although the god of nature has never been born in this world, if he is alone, he is far from enough to compete with the national treasure. After all, what the national treasure can awaken are the monsters that can completely destroy the world. Greenbit High Street. Ayu was running around in the snack bar on the street. Brother, this is delicious, you eat. Dylan took a bite of the grilled sturgeon that Ayu handed over, and took her to the bench next to the park to sit down. Ayu, what's the matter, brother? Dylan patted her little head and said with a smile, Big brother told you, right? Tell Big brother about something sad. Hearing Dylan's words, Ayu's chewing speed of the grilled sturgeon gradually slowed down. She carefully chewed the fish in her mouth, as if she wanted to remember the taste deeply. Just like when I was hungry in Wanokuni. Master, he is Kazuki Sukiyaki, Tahir told you. Only Ayu. Ayu leaned against Dylan's body and sobbed softly. Ayu believes in Big brother. Dylan hugged her thin body and said softly, if one day, people there really start to seek freedom and equality, they will have the qualifications for freedom and equality. Perhaps. Ayu lowered her head, her small body trembled slightly, and two big teardrops fell on her skirt. Must. Dylan sighed. This was too much of a blow for Ayu. She clutched the corner of her clothes tightly, and after a long time, she asked softly, "Will you come back to see Ayu?" "Brother." After a moment of silence, Ayu looked up at Dylan. Is Master really just using Ayu to deceive Big Brother? Ayu, Wano-kuni, is left to you by Big Brother. One more thing, Dylan patted Ayu on the back to reassure her. Okay. In this world, everyone has something to rely on. Nami, Nuo Chigao and Belle-Mel. Perhaps Sukiyaki really had good intentions when he adopted Ayu. Even Camilla has Balmond and Craig. Wano-kuni katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. The place is nice, but the people there are not too smart. So, the Big Brother may do something there that you can't understand for a while. Before then, Ayu, let's help elder brother keep an eye on it. But that kindness evaporates when she tries to use Ayu to take advantage of her. Chapter 177 Fisherman. The wind and the waves are too strong. Kanamon, we should not go back. Your Highness Momonosuke. Kanamon looked at Momosuke, who was full of snot, and said sadly, we must return to Wano-kuni. Although the destruction of Kuri was not long ago for us, Denjiro and Kawamatsu have been waiting for 20 years. Quote. Believe in Madam's prophecy, someone will definitely defeat Kaido. Momosuke lay on the side of the boat, looking at the chaotic currents and the seemingly never-ending wind, tremblingly talking to himself. Father is no match for him, not as good. Your Highness, you are Wano-kuni's future. General, how can you be timid without fighting? But, Momosuke's face showed fear, the shadow of the giant dragon covering the sky was too great. But the next one is just an 8-year-old child. The corner of Konjiro's mouth twitched, but he didn't make a sound. Kazuki House. G5. After Dylan told Zephyr about Sakazuki's plan, Zephyr was silent for a while, then he pushed his glasses and asked, is there no other choice? He is not young anymore. Although he still has a high reputation and cohesion in Marine, he has had differences with Marineford after all. Besides, whether the current him is considered a Marine sequence is another matter. G5. Although it has the name of Marine, it is basically not under the jurisdiction and restriction of Marineford. That is to say, Sakazuki and Dylan have the same ideas. If someone else is in charge of Marineford, I am afraid that G5 will have already left at this time. Other candidates have more or less flaws, and now it seems that only you are the most suitable. Kuzan is too indecisive, and Pelusolino is even more inappropriate. Gion and Cake are not strong enough. Yishao and Wangmu are not orthodox Marines. Only the previous, Marshal, Sengoku and former instructor, Zephyr can serve. With the characteristics of a vampire fruit, you can still maintain your peak state for at least 20 years. After the collapse of Mariajoy, the world will inevitably usher in changes, and a tougher person is needed to maintain the most basic order. Let's find a successor while doing it. What about G5? In Zephyr's original plan, he was going to guard G5 for Dylan. Although Tahir is also very suitable, in fact Tahir does not like to deal with mundane affairs very much, and Tahir has said it before. After the matter is over, he needs to find a place for the Fur tribe. Among the remaining senior officers, Bullet and Shiryu were naturally excluded. Tom also said that he would return to the capital of water and rebuild the sea train. Dylan smiled and pointed to the position of G5. Actually, after that incident, the position of G5 is no longer important. So I'm going to let another guy come here. Other people, isn't it from the G5 system? But Zephyr couldn't understand why Dylan said that the position of G5 would become no longer important. After all, G5 occupies the flattest and most fertile area in the front and middle of New World. If there is anything that can make it unimportant, unless. Thinking of this, Zephyr raised his head and drew 2 strokes on the calm belt on both sides of the Grand Line. So, only the calm belt is gone, and the world is one. There is no Grand Line in the world anymore, and the location of the G5 will become ordinary. Yes, although it is not completely confirmed, it is roughly like this. After getting Dylan's answer, Zephyr nodded. If this is the case, the importance of G5 in terms of geographical location has indeed declined. Advertisement. As for the guy outside the G5 system, Zephyr didn't bother to investigate either, after all they were used to it by now. Dylan has never run out of cards in his hand. Not long after Zephyr left, Tahir came to his office with a stack of papers. According to my summary and Mr. Balmond's, it is roughly possible to determine the list of some remaining flags, but it still needs to be confirmed. Okay. Banners exist independently of guides and guardians, and most of them hold the right to speak in a certain field or a certain region. Although they may not have strong power, their appeal and destructive power to the grassroots of the world will even far exceed the power-based guardians. I have communicated with Mr. Balmond. Most of the targets are arranged by him to monitor, and they will be executed immediately after confirmation, a small number of Grand Line flags. Tahir took out some documents. King of Alabasta, Neferudali Cobra. Sea Freight King, Umit. Marine Commodore, Branu. Impel Down Warden, Domino. King of the Kingdom of Elusia, Zunda Lucas. And also, Tahir spread out the information, and the head of Don Quixote Muscarad-san was impressively listed. According to the information we buried in Mariajoy and Balmonds, there are some banners among the celestial dragons. It is still difficult to confirm on others, but Don Quixote Muscarad-Saint should be certain. I don't need to worry about the celestial dragons. At that time, there will be a pot of stew, and there will be no flags. The words of these people. Dylan looked at the rows of photos. Dylan pressed the black button on the desk. Soon Leo appeared in the office. The four of you led the team yourself. Except for Branu, each of you will follow the other, and kill before Mariajoy. Yes. Leo glanced at the photo and left. Probably. Otherwise, with his current strength, there is no need to dormant at all. Monitoring Greenbit and assassination are his main duties. The redhead must have been waiting to get himself into Mariajoy. As early as 8 years ago, after the redhead attacked Shiryu and Belmel in a very abnormal manner on the Great Icefall, Dylan began to quietly investigate his trajectory. In addition to being the commander of the G507 combat unit, he also serves as the commander of the Dark Guard. Dylan chuckled slightly. Where is the redhead? After all, they are all strong men who have broken free from the shackles of the blood factor. With Hongfa's current strength, it is simply not enough for them. He also deserves. We went to the deepest part of the West Blue Glacier. We shouldn't rush in, but it should be to contact those people. After he was fully confirmed, he deliberately alarmed them once again, so as to confirm the guess. Those guys don't seem to be entirely available to redheads either. Redhead, judging by his current state, he won't wait for Joey Poe's next resurrection. Now the East Blue side has locked up, and South Blue has locked up quite a bit. Awakened gods. Because whether it's me or Mariajoy, after either side wins, they have no way out. He wants to be a fisherman. So Chapter 178 5-star General. Back to Wano Kuni. Dylan looked at Kazuki in front of him wearing a big Tengu mask. That's right, the day of Madame Shi's prophecy is this year, I have to go back. Dylan sneered inwardly, but his face didn't change much. To guide yourself to help. I'll ask someone to arrange for you to go back first, after a while. Dylan glanced at him with a smile. I will lead the G5 fleet to conquer the Beast's pirates. This is what I promised Ayu. Sukiyaki walked out of Dylan's office excitedly, and stepped aside cautiously when he saw Tahir walking towards him. Tahir walked into the office after giving him a slight nod. Trader of the fur race. In the records of the Kazuki family, the fur clan had an agreement with them. But now this exaggeratedly powerful guy has betrayed the oath of his ancestors. Tahir, who had already walked into Dylan's office, paused slightly, then shook his head. That's how they are, the people there. Dylan said indifferently. Stupid, stubborn, seemingly polite on the surface, but actually cruel and twisted. Something like Odin. No matter what, it can't be washed away. It's a pity that he still doesn't know the way to reverse time and space, otherwise it is not impossible for him to kill Odin himself 20 years ago. Nekobamushi and Anuarashi first abandoned the group, and then attempted to lead the entire group to become Wano Kuni's slaves. Kin, Emin is a gambler and lustful B*****************. D. Ashura Boy was originally a murderous hooligan. Such a group of stinky fish and rotten shrimp can be worshipped by the people of Wano Kuni for decades, even if there is not enough to eat, even if the corpse is exposed to the wilderness. They still firmly believe that these stinky fish and rotten shrimps will go back to save them. Just let Lousy be a 5-star general. Presumably you also greatly like and admire. Tahir. After thinking for a while, Dylan said to Tahir seriously, if there are not too many changes, Zephyr should return to Marine and take charge of the future development of Marine. Bullet and Shiryu. Yes, as long as I'm here, they will be honest. It's hard to say after I leave. Dylan didn't shy away from this question. Shiryu is still okay, and he has changed a lot in these years. But what Bullet surrenders to is its own strength. Although you can easily suppress them with your strength, East Blue also has Craig and Camilla who can suppress them. But they are not suitable to stay in Wano Kuni. Dylan tapped on the table. Wano Kuni, although it is just a fart place, it is rich in samurai and gangsters. I need someone to escort Ayu. Ain. Tahir glanced at Dylan. Of course he knew what Dylan was thinking. With your remaining prestige, Wano Kuni can maintain their surrender for at least 30 or 50 years, and Ain's strength is enough to deter them. At that time, Tahir smiled. I'm pretty much done with the fur people thing, you know, I don't want to be king or anything. I'll go to Wano Kuni then. Well, apart from Ayu, the sea stone, liquor iron ore, and ancient weapon, are all important. So I don't plan to make it a country. Ancient weapon. Just continue to sleep there, as for when the country will be founded. Dylan twirled his fingers lightly and thought for a moment before saying. After they have completely forgotten about samurai and family. Give them the power to found a country. Understood. Then, when will it be over? Beast's pirates. Like a solitary boat floating in the New World. After the destruction of the Big Mom pirates, people have already migrated to the large empty sea area. Advertisement. G5's warships are only cruising around very sporadically, and no pirates dare to plunder. Although the man didn't speak, since it was the place where he hit. It's his place by default. This is recognized. Although Greenbit has repeatedly explained that they are not a subsidiary kingdom of G5, other kingdoms do not need to pay taxes to G5 through them. But in the entire sea area around G5, all small islands and kingdoms that have been sheltered by G5 will actively provide various materials to G5 through Greenbit. Food, minerals, medicines, wood, and even devil fruit. Mariajoy turned a blind eye, and Marineford was even more indifferent. Now in the second half of New World, most of the pirates have gone to Blackbeard's territory. Although it is also hell-level difficulty, because it needs to be qualified to join from the fight. Those people, most of them are guys who have already been rewarded, and they have no choice. The reward order was originally a symbol of the identity and strength of the pirates, but now it has become their life-threatening spell. Those pirates who had not yet been rewarded got off the ship and changed their careers to other professions. By the way, is Shiryu back? Before that, Shiryu went to the Whitebeard pirates to clean up, alone. Although Dylan is not worried about Shiryu's safety, Teach may have the strength to kill him, but Dylan believes that Teach does not have the guts. 2 days ago, it returned with the fleet of Unit 04. Oh, how's the status? Tahir pondered for a while. It shouldn't be a big problem. There are some mixed breaths, but according to my judgment, it's not enough to affect his mind. Okay, Shiryu and the Ashura fruit are also compatible to some extent, at the level of strength. But there are obvious differences in spiritual will. Let Shiryu go to the 9 snakes. Catch Boa Hancock and go back to jail. If you resist. 2 Dao. Calm belt. Amazon Lily. Shiryu floats in the air and looks at the 9 snake palace, on the cliff. Shiryu of the rain, why did you come here? Although he already had some premonitions and conjectures in his heart, when the G5 people really appeared, Boa Hancock still felt bitter in his heart. Can you wait for me? Today's Shiryu doesn't think much of Boa Hancock's strength, even though she owns conquerors. But now, after speaking, Boa Hancock boarded the perfume snake alone. I'm not a good king. Take you to G5 and go to jail. But Shiryu could sense that Boa Hancock's conqueror's hockey was fading away day by day. But Amazon Lily has tens of thousands of people. There is only one perfume snake. As long as she dares to say, no. No explanation, no superfluous words. In addition, the reproduction of their race is also extremely dependent on the spring water in the mountains. After the Summit War, when Shiryu followed Dylan to collect the bill, she still vaguely expected her to resist. Boa Hancock seems to have predicted the ending long ago, but she was still a little sad when this day really came. And once they migrate, who knows what that man will think? They simply do not have the ability and qualifications to migrate. Although the world is big, it may not be like that in the eyes of that man. Gloriosa katakana middle dot 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 Amazon katakana middle dot Lily katakana middle dot chapter 179 target, Wanokuni. Boa Hancock did not immediately go to the dungeon on the first floor after Shiryu escorted him down to G5. She looked at Shiryu calmly and asked, can you please communicate with Dark Dragon, I want to see him. Shiryu frowned. Dylan didn't like this woman very much, but he didn't directly kill her before. After thinking for a while, Shiryu took out the phone bug in his arms. Okay. Shiryu looked Dylan in the eyes and said, she wants to see you. Dylan on the other end of the phone bug didn't seem surprised, nodded and said, bring her up. After receiving Dylan's instruction, Shiryu nodded towards Boa Hancock, and then took the lead on the lift platform. Boa Hancock stood aside. Shiryu of Rain did not restrain her from beginning to end. This is not trust. Be confident. After sighing lightly, Boa Hancock looked up. Rumor has it that the man is going to attack Mariajoy. Bang bang. The elevator stopped, and Boa Hancock walked towards the huge office opposite. The people around him turned a blind eye to him, including the ordinary civil servants who didn't care about this big pirate, and the second most beautiful woman in the world, who used to be famous all over the world. After taking a slow breath, Boa Hancock stepped into Dylan's office. Dylan was sitting on the sofa in the living room drinking tea. Sky Fox, Tahir sat across from him making tea. Surprisingly, this time Dylan didn't taunt her or laugh at her. Dylan lifted his chin towards her, motioning for her to sit on the other side. After she sat down, Shiryu sat across from her. Tell me, what's the matter? Boa Hancock clenched his palms tightly. Can you let Samaro go back? Although the 2 giant snakes on the perfume snake also have the ability to drag ships on the comm belt, their IQ is not high. Without Samaro's leadership, it is almost impossible for them to return to Amazon Lily. And giant snakes of this size are also rare in Amazon Lily. Without them, the Amazon Lily would almost fall into a natural slow death. The snake. Okay. That's all. After receiving Dylan's reply, Boa Hancock breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked seriously, there's more. Her palms turned white from her grip, and after she calmed down, she whispered. 2 years ago, the 9 snake pirates ceased to exist, and today's Amazon Lily has no pirates. Already. They. Dylan frowned at the drastically changed woman in front of him. The arrogance has all disappeared, and it seems that she has returned to the way she was when she was a child. There is a problem with your statement. Dylan said lightly. As far as I know, you were actually prepared 2 years ago, so most of the dead are some. Dylan chuckled slightly. When he went to Amazon Lily to collect the bill 2 years ago, although many of the heads given by the other party were combatants of the 9 snake pirates, a considerable number of them were old and weak. And her 2 younger sisters and Gloriosa were not among them. Boa Hancock's body tightened, but she reacted immediately. He saw this kind of thing at the beginning. Since he didn't pursue it at the time. Do you know why I didn't pursue it then? Advertisement. Dylan lit one and took a puff, then looked at the woman in front of him who had lost her arrogance. Because in some ways, I sympathize with you. After all, you have been slaves of the celestial dragons. You are also victims of the world. Boa Hancock's pupils shrank. How would he know? However, Dylan flicked the cigarette ash, and his face became a little cold. You have been hurt, but it doesn't mean you have the right to pass the harm on to innocent civilians. 13 years ago, Boa Hancock, who had just turned 18, showed amazing strength, plus Amazon Lily was located in the Jedi Belt. The world government chose to recruit it to become 7 warlords of the sea. In order to protect Amazon Lily and to be able to plunder legally, Boa Hancock chose to accept it. You have been hurt, so you have to double the revenge on the world. When I sent Belle Mel, it was a warning to you. Unfortunately, you were blinded by your own arrogance. The islands and properties around Amazon Lily are enough to feed you, but you will still go to sea to plunder. In addition to other pirates, you also plunder civilians and merchant ships. Guilty. It will be punished. Looking at Boa Hancock, who was trembling slightly, Dylan extinguished the cigarette in his hand and put his hands on the back of the sofa. Before the Summit War, I asked the flying squirrel to bring you a message. How about you? For a man who doesn't know the so-called, dare to do anything to Marine in that situation. With your brain, what kind of king should you be? Prison is more suitable for you. I see. Boa Hancock stood up slowly. The meaning of Dark Dragon is already obvious. He has no intention of destroying the entire Amazon Lily, because most of the people there are innocent. But if you let yourself lead my pirate identity, I have assisted Luffy. These are all likely to be tipping points in the future. Shiryu did not escort her again. When he reached the door, Boa Hancock stopped and turned around slowly. Hope you succeed, I will repent in G5's jail. The guard at the door saw that Shiryu didn't come out and nodded to her, then took her on the elevator and went to the lower floor. Shut up to death, Tahir asked symbolically after Boa Hancock left. Dylan usually doesn't ask about these things later. But according to Tahir's judgment, Dylan may not really have the intention to put the woman in prison to death. Of course, if he has it, he will follow it in the next few decades. You don't have to. Dylan waved his hand. She's just an idiot. She'll be locked up for 10 years. After 10 years, the world will basically be stable. And Dylan glanced at the map. 10 years from now, the Calm Belt should have ceased to exist. By that time, there may not be major wars, but small frictions will definitely continue. Amazon Lily also needs someone to lead it. After speaking, Dylan glanced at Shiryu, inside of him. When he observed Craig, he could clearly perceive the existence of Garuda. There are many factors in which Galileo actively communicated with him, but now Dylan carefully perceived the spiritual will in Shiryu's body, but could only vaguely perceive something. It's okay not to wake up. After all, Ashura's nature is too belligerent. Get ready. Dylan tapped the tabletop. Participants. Tahir, Shiryu, Ian, Tom, the target. Wano Kuni. Chapter 180 Return to Sheath. Wano Kuni, 9 miles. Kanamon, who was hiding at the edge of the ruins, led Momosuke to look at the desolate and dilapidated scene outside, feeling hopeless and uneasy again. Shaoju. I don't know if he has contacted Denjiro Kawamatsu and the others. Raizo, Mobamushi, and Anuarashi are all dead. The Red Sheath 9 heroes are already incomplete. So who exactly is the 9 shadows falling from the sky, predicted by Mrs. Shi? Thinking of what Mrs. Shi said to him before sending them away, Kanamon stood up and looked into the distance. Kanamon, where are you going? Kanamon looked at the east direction and pondered for a while, although going out at this time is not the best policy, but going to Mikasa village. When I left, Madame once said that she entrusted the heavenly feather hammer and enma of the royal palace to someone. Those are the weapons of the royal palace and a symbol of orthodoxy. Momosuke buzzed his mouth, but finally didn't speak, just crawled out from the corner of the ruins timidly and walked to Kanamon. At this time, in Toentone Port, Kazuki Sukiyaki hurried towards Niangasa village after getting off the boat organized by CP. During the period of overseas, his perception of the world has completely changed. That organization called world government. In the eyes of the world, the Dark Dragon, which is already almost invincible, seems to have no certainty of defeating them. Oden. Kazuki Oden returned to Wano Kuni and fought Kaido until he was shot in a frying pan for 5 years. Father and son did not meet each other. At the beginning, he was imprisoned underground in the capital of Flowers, but after he fled to Kasa village, Oden's every move was under the surveillance of Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido. It wasn't until the last moment that Tianyushi escaped from the fire on his horse and came to Bionli village. In addition to entrusting Tianyu Yujin and Yanmo to him, Tianyushi also told him that there must be someone, destined, to come to him in the future. Come save this country. Before he had time to ask, Tianyu left. Kaido and Kurozumi Orochi's pursuers followed closely behind. Not long after, he heard the news. Tianyu took the initiative to return to Julie and buried Oden in the Sea of Flames, and left behind the legend and hope of 9 shadows in the sky. This legend has always supported the country and the people here. Dark Dragon. The first time Kazuki Sukiyaki saw him when he met Nagasamura, he was amazed at his strength. At such a young age, he was able to tame the famous sword, one of the 12 craftsmen of the Supreme Sword, and temper it into a black sword. Oden is nowhere near that. And according to the legend he heard in G5, even the former, One Piece, Roger and Whitebeard, Edward Newgate didn't do this. When he discovered Dylan's love for Ayu, he immediately seized the opportunity in exchange for Dylan's promise. And now his power. Kazuki Sukiyaki is confident that Adam's Dylan will definitely defeat Kaido. Just need to come up with enough exchange value after he defeats Kaido. Wano Kuni still has many treasures. Ghost Island. After the death of Drought Jack, the position of the big billboard has been vacant. Even the Beast's pirates will have trouble getting out to sea as Wano Kuni is closed. But they have maintained a keen communication with the outside world. Now there are not a few inches of pirates in the entire New World to settle down, and their already weak intelligence network has even appeared a huge fault. Maha, the CP0 member in charge of the Wano Kuni transaction, is also suffering now. Mariajoy has given a clear order. Ready to take over Wano Kuni. When Maha received this order, he almost thought that someone was setting him up behind his back. Take over. From whom? Kaido, our dark dragon, unless. Maha pondered for a moment, thinking about the rumor that has been circulating recently. The dark dragon is about to challenge the throne of Mariajoy. As a senior member of CP0, Maha has more information than others, and the biggest problem is. If the dark dragon doesn't go to Mariajoy, then the celestial dragons have almost nothing to do with him. Just like the sea emperors who have been entrenched in the New World for the past 20 years. Advertisement. National treasure is also flawed. And Wano Kuni is precisely such a place with a superior geographical location that is almost exaggerated. The world government has coveted it for hundreds of years but has never achieved its wish. Kaido, this guy. This year's performance is also very abnormal. Brother Kaido. Jin watched Kaido, who was already drunk, walk up to him and called out in a low voice. There is already news that the man's fleet has set sail. According to speculation in the newspaper, the horsepower of the G5 fleet does not seem to be worried about the bad weather outside Wano Kuni. Kaido slightly opened his eyes, but his gaze did not fall on Jin. He opens the gate to Ghost Island. It seemed to be waiting for someone to arrive. He came. Already set off. Ooh hey 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 hey. Let me see how strong the guy who can defeat Linlin is. When Dylan attacked before, the two sides only played against each other very briefly. Although Kaido was pierced by Kunlun, he didn't care. Hearing Kaido's response, Jin didn't ask any more questions. Now that a decision has been made, there is only one battle. Ember. Just when Jin turned around and was about to go out, Kaido murmured drunkenly to himself, has the world become better? Jin's body stiffened slightly. This question, he couldn't answer it. He used to think that Kaido was Joey Bowie, because he had almost invincible body and fighting spirit. But, since coming to Wano Kuni, no, Jin can clearly feel the changes in Kaido since Kazuki Oden was executed. They came to Wano Kuni, the original plan was to reserve troops. Weapons, wealth, abilities. When the time is right, they will launch a huge war together to destroy the world. Destroy the Mariajoy, destroy the kingdom, destroy the nobility. But since Oden was executed, Kaido's heart has changed. Although he enslaved this place, sometimes Jin would have a little doubt. For example, brother Kaido is also protecting this place. Maybe, the outside world has changed a lot, but. Before Jin finished speaking, Kaido's snoring sounded. Jin glanced at Kaido's body, the circular scar on his left abdomen was still shocking. The tender red flesh seemed to grow out yesterday. But, it's been over a year since the Dark Dragon raided Wano Kuni. An ominous premonition rose in Jin's heart. You don't refuse. Ain was standing on the bow of the main ship of the G5 fleet, and Dylan walked up to her and asked. Ain shook his head. The purpose of my joining Marine is to wipe out the pirates, now. She looked at the strong wind and thunderclouds that were already faintly visible in the distance. To be honest, without you, I don't think they can do what they are today with Marshal Sakazuki. My long-cherished wish has basically come true. You can refuse. Ain turned to look at Dylan. A sword should be sheathed after it has fulfilled its purpose. Chapter 181 Meeting again. After hearing what Ain said, Dylan didn't say anything else. The two stood at the bow of the boat and looked at the distant sea together. In has been following him for 7 years, this female swordsman who had not achieved much in the original history and ended up sadly. Looking at her sea blue hair blowing in the wind, Dylan smiled. Some things. Dylan sighed after a pause. Actually, I haven't got an accurate result yet, but, if I destroy the national treasure, in the future, after getting the answer, still there is Ayu. Dylan turned to look at Ain. Does he not understand her mind? Of course not, but as he said to Bellmayer back then, his journey is far from over, so he can't leave flaws and regrets. And once he had a child, it was inevitable that the child would fall into the Uzumaki of power. It may even become a tool for others. I know that you have been learning knowledge in addition to practicing kendo these years, so let me tell you some of my guesses. Dylan raised his hand, and his palm slowly turned into lightning. Use armed color. In's eyebrows frowned slightly, but still covered the armed color on the right hand and grabbed Dylan's palm. Quote exclamation mark quote. Her arm-colored palm still pierced Dylan's. Dylan smiled at her. I didn't elementize ahead of time. As this, Logia's real awakening. Dylan shook his head. I don't know, because I can't define it, and there are things about me that are different from yours. But what I can tell you is. Dylan glanced at her, rarely showing a look of expectation. If you can reach this step in the future, then in the starry sky, we will still meet again. A bright color flashed in In's eyes, and her white palm held Chushui's knife handle tightly. The Mara fruit is in my hand, and the magnetic fruit is pretty good too. After everything is over, you can choose to eat one of them. If Ayu wants, she can eat the other one, or. Quote. Looking at the woman who has been by his side for many years without complaint or regret, Dylan put his hands on the side of the boat. You can wait for Pelusolino to die, and go look for the sparkling fruit. The fruit will grow faster. If the development goes well, it is also more suitable for traveling in the starry sky. It is good. Aine nodded. A smile appeared on her face. The strong wind was blowing in the face, and the fleet swayed with the strong wind and waves. But then the waves died down. On the flank of the fleet, a brown figure stood on the waves. Mr. Tom, if it is said that G5 has the least shot record, it may be the 07 combat unit. But if you want to say the most unfathomable, it must be Tom besides Dylan. The world is still unable to accurately judge the strength of Tom and Tahir. Some say they are already on par with Admiral. But more people believe that their strength has surpassed Admiral. The tide carried Tom slowly to the front of the fleet. Tom looked serious. What he was worried about was not the outcome of the war in front of him. Because there is no suspense in this war. He was thinking about something else. What role will he play in the next, final battle? What can he do for this world, with that man? Dylan looked at the chubby figure standing on the waves and smiled with relief. Firm, strong, steady, reliable. It's one of the few options he can fully commit to. It will also be one of the very important forces in the final battle. Vice Admiral is about to arrive at Changying Port in the Rabbit Bowl. Advertisement. Ready to log in. Yes, the fleet brought here is the G5 main fleet that has hardly played. Standing straight on both sides of the cabin are the Guilman brothers who came back from the kingdom of Chia. Dylan turned his head and glanced at Brother Gaiman. You lead a team to wipe out the pirates and members of the Kurozumi family outside the Flower City. Yes. Brother Gaiman looked solemn, and after getting off the boat, he waved to Marine who was already in line. An elite force of 200 people headed in the direction of Bai Wu. On the other side, Tom, Shiryu, and Tahir were already on shore. Shiryu leads the way, and the pirates, members of the Kurozumi family, and gangsters along the way are all executed. The target. The capital of flowers. To understanding, Shiryu glanced behind him, and another soldier in the phalanx took the initiative to follow. He's here, and he's already landed in Changying Port. Hearing Jin's words, Kaido slowly opened his eyes. As his eyes opened, Ghost Island began to shake slowly. Looks like no one else is coming. Onijima slowly floated up into the sky, and Kaido, who had turned into a giant dragon, grabbed the flame cloud and looked in the direction of the flower capital. Odin, your prophecy was wrong. In the corner of Onijima, Yamato looked at the slowly rising Onijima with a puzzled expression. That B********* D Kaido, does he want to do something bad again? Hateful, she punched the shackles on her left hand. If you are not bound by this kind of thing. Yamato stood up and looked into the distance, holding her mace, Ken, tightly with her right hand. Kaido, no matter what bad things you try to do, I will stop you. As Kazuki Odin, he thought of the man who came to Wano-kuni with Ace 4 years ago. Is he here? Kaido looked into the distance, there was no hesitation in his eyes, no hesitation. Only excitement and determination. Yamato katakana middle dot 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 Kaido brother really loves you, but you. He used to be occasionally heard from other people talking about him, and he seems to have become a very remarkable guy. Jin, who was flying beside Kaido, also glanced down. Jin sighed in his heart, this was the entanglement between their father and daughter, and it was difficult for him to speak. What the hell did he do? Hey. Perhaps feeling something, the eyes of the cyan dragon in the sky moved slightly. The man's words had once hurt Yamato deeply, but she soon became firm again. They don't understand Odin, his sacrifice and righteousness. She had seen with her own eyes a few drunken guys who inadvertently talked about that person's deeds, but was quickly executed by that guy Jin on the spot. But Jin always feels sad for Kaido in his heart. And also, Kazuki Odin is such a waste that he has nothing but a little power. Obviously he doesn't hate Ace. But why didn't he save Ace? But since he suddenly appeared a year ago to destroy the factory and kill Fuzifu, that person's name has become a taboo on Onijima. Looking at the white figure standing on the edge of the Ghost Island, Kaido immediately looked away. Chapter 182 Capital of Flowers. Rumble. The Ghost Island landed at the river where the Capital of Flowers, Julie and Baiwu intersected. Jin frowned. Didn't you directly use the flame cloud to support the Ghost Island to go to the Capital of Flowers? Brother Kaido. Kaido, who had already turned into a human form, went to the boat and glanced at Jin behind him, and Jin froze for a moment. Brother Kaido, it's been a long time since I called myself by this name. The last question, you haven't given me the answer yet. Jin was silent for a while, he didn't know why Kaido asked such a question. Maybe, but he may not succeed. During the days when he was hunted down and imprisoned, he also heard some history about the Lunaria tribe. And he has also heard the rumor that has been circulating in the world recently. Ooh hey, this is not like what you said. Kaido stood at the bow of the boat and did not continue to ask questions. He turned to Quinn on the other side and said, Quinn, go and untie Yamato's shackles. Quinn, who is the chief scientist of Beast's Pirates, and a big signboard, of course knew what he was going to face next. He nodded and then turned and walked towards Yamato in the distance. There is a positioning device on the shackles, and it will explode once it leaves the range of the Ghost Island. Quinn smiled strangely as he walked forward. Brother Kaido. Others, though curious, did not question Kaido's decision. Kaido, Dylan. They tacitly headed towards the capital of Wano, the capital of flowers. The capital of flowers. Who did you say is here? Maha sat opposite Kurozumi and said indifferently, Dark Dragon, Adams Dylan. Maybe you don't care about these things, you can ask other people. Kurozumi Orochi turned his head to look at Fu Lu Shou beside him. Fu Lu Shou said in a deep voice, he is a very powerful person, at present. After a pause, Fu Lu Shou said, he is the strongest person known so far. There was a trace of panic in Kurozumi's eyes, and then he laughed wildly, strong. Is it stronger than Kaido? After laughing twice, Kurozumi Orochi found that they didn't seem to have much reaction before his expression changed. No, it won't be. Fu Lusho nodded. There was a sneer on Maha's face under the mask. The body of Kurozumi Orochi trembled slightly, at the time of Tianyu. That damned woman, her prophecy has tortured her for 20 years. Not long ago he received a letter from Kanjuro. That woman actually used witchcraft to send those guys from 20 years to this year. Could it be? Tuk tuk. There was a knock on the door. Kurozumi Orochi's body jerked violently. Who? General, there is news from Baiwu that our people have been attacked. Kurozumi Orochi didn't respond to the voice outside the door, he turned to look at Maha. Then, what does the world government want me to do? Maha was silent for a while. In fact, the order given by the world government was very vague, and he didn't know exactly what to do. But if the Dark Dragon came here just to conquer Kaido, then he still needs a puppet to rule here. Such as Kurozumi Orochi. The world government has not made arrangements for you, but my personal suggestion is that you hide first and wait for the war to end. Maha looked at the ugly guy in front of him, feeling a little impatient. Cowardly, incompetent, lustful, cruel. Almost all the shortcomings that humans can find are concentrated on him. This is the kind of guy who can rule Wano, and those ignorant guys can bear his rule. Boom boom boom. Advertisement. Boom boom boom. A burst of hurried footsteps sounded from the promenade outside the door, and Kurozumi's heart rose again. My lord, Kaido's ship has arrived at the port of the Flower City. Ha ha, ha ha ha, let them fight to the death first. Wano always needs a general. Maha didn't pay attention to Kurozumi Orochi's words, what he noticed was another message. Boat. Kaido came by boat. He neither used the flame cloud to support the ghost island, nor did he fly over in the form of a dragon. The city gate of the capital of flowers. Denjiro combing his broom hair and standing in the middle of the street with his guards watching the oncoming team sweating from his palms. Did not receive any summons. The guy who was at the front smashed the city gate with a single blow. And behind him, just when Shiryu's gaze met Ujiro and showed killing intent, Dylan in the distance said slowly, call him over. Shiryu raised his chin towards Denjiro, beckoning him to come over. Denjiro looked at the guards behind him and the onlookers in the distance and thought for a while, then said, I am Lord Orochi. Kill it. As soon as the words in the distance fell, a pitch-black figure appeared in front of Denjiro's eyes. Denjiro lowered his head with difficulty to look at the thunderstorm, submerged in his abdomen, his eyes showed an unbelievable look. The thunderstorm of entanglement and black mist swallowed Denjiro in an instant. He didn't even have time to ask questions, and he turned into dry bones in an instant. Okay. The moment Denjiro's body dissipated, Dylan took a look at Shiryu's body. For such an extremely brief moment, he felt the fluctuation of bloodline factors in Shiryu's body. But it subsided quickly. The blood of the strong. Crazy. Brother Quangshalang is dead. The black mist from Lei Yudao fell to the ground. Shiryu turned his head to look at Dylan. Dylan nodded at him. In the next instant, those scattered guards stopped in their tracks. A black mist rose from under their feet, wrapping around their ankles. Chi. After a burst of cutting sounds, dozens of dead bones fell to the ground. What? There were exclamations one after another from both sides of the street. This kind of, the devil-like method. Walk. Dylan looked at the tall, general's mansion, in the distance. 9 miles. Kinemon, who received Kikunojo's message, took Momosuke and Kanjuro and turned around and ran towards the capital of flowers before arriving at Nayagasa village. Someone is coming. Someone is here to help them. Is it the person Madam she predicted? Momonosuke, who was lying on the horse's back, was holding on to Kinemon's skirt tightly, tears and snot all over his face. Kinemon, are we going to the Flower City? There. Your Highness. Kinemon showed a look of surprise while galloping his horse. Someone is coming to attack Kaido. Although we don't know who it is, Xiaoju said that they have already entered the capital of flowers. We must hurry up. On the other road, Kazuki Sukiyaki looked at Onijima flying to the capital of flowers and got into the path. He must be here. Dark Dragon, Adams Dylan. He has come to fulfill his promise. Peach, where are you? If you haven't come back, Grandpa will take the position of general for you first. Chapter 183 Long Street. Central Avenue of the capital of flowers. Many people reacted from the original panic. Someone, let's hunt down Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido. Is it the Kazuki samurai, prophesied by Mrs. Shi 20 years ago? But some people went back to the window and quietly looked at the street. Those people didn't look like warriors. Dylan didn't care about the prying eyes around him. Before he came, he had Vic inform Maha, and asked him to prepare enough light paintings to broadcast the battle in real time. From the gate of Shiryu's chopped flower capital, the battle has already started, light painting live, throughout Wano Kuni. Rabbit Bowl Jail. By the time the Guileman brothers arrived here with G5's elite troops, the quarry had basically stopped functioning. After killing all the members of the Beast's Pirates, and the samurai with the Kurozumi family crest, they began to release the prisoners one by one from the prison. The two brothers stood at the exit of the prison, watching one after another prisoners file out from the inside. Stop. When a short figure wearing a bamboo hat came to the door, the older big brother indifferently called to stop the team. The body wearing the hat paused slightly, and the expression could not be seen clearly under the hat. Come with us, or die. Hisong's heart tightened. It seemed that he was an enemy rather than a friend, and the target was himself. He still doesn't know what's going on outside. When he looked up at the quarry full of corpses of givers, laughers, and members of Kurozumi's family, Kawasatsu felt a wave of doubts in his heart. Enemy of enemy. Seeing that he didn't answer, Guileman's younger brother had already put his hand on Muku's handle. This is their extra task. In addition to cleaning up the remnants of Beast's Pirates and Kurozumi's family in other towns, this person is on the special list. 2 in prison, one of the original 9 heroes of the Red Sheath, Hisong. Find him, take him to the capital of flowers, and execute him on the spot if he resists. It is good. Although he doesn't know the opponent's purpose yet, since he came as Kaido's enemy, he wants to see the end no matter what. The twin big brother nodded and said to Marine behind him, leave 10 people to maintain order, and go to the front of Guangwu to wait for the new lord. The rest, behind the bell. After nodding towards his younger brother, the big brother took Hisong and headed towards the capital of flowers. The original slaves and prisoners released the remaining prisoners one by one under the supervision of G5 Marine, and then they gathered together and stood on the stone platform of the gravel yard to look at the light painting on the stone wall. The new lord. Is Kurozumi Orochi dying? The younger people have hope in their hearts, no matter who they are. It's better than Kurozumi Orochi anyway. The older ones began to meditate. Is it samurai of the Kazuki family? They looked up at the picture in the light painting. Apart from hundreds of guys dressed like the people here, the most conspicuous ones in the light painting were the 5 people who walked to the front of the line. There were no warriors they were familiar with, nor the 9 heroes in red sheaths they remembered. Maha, who was sitting in the general's mansion, was also in a very difficult situation at this time. The war between the Dark Dragon and Mariajoy is imminent. But the world government still let him stay here. Of course he knows the importance of Wano Kuni, but he also knows the means and power of the Dark Dragon. How should he communicate with the Dark Dragon? After pondering for a while, he thought of his colleague who had been stationed with Wano Kuni all the year round, Vic. On the other side, the fidgety Kurozumi paced around the room anxiously. According to CP0 and Fu Lu Shou, the guy who has entered the city has more power than Kaido. Although he hated the Kazuki family, more than 20 years of general career has made him used to this kind of life. Advertisement. How can I persuade the other party to continue to let him take the position of general? After thinking about it for a long time, he couldn't find a good solution, so Kurozumi shouted out the door in frustration. Go ask Xiaozi to come and accompany me. Xiaozi has gone out. I'm afraid it will take some time. Go. Trash. Yes. Listening to the distant footsteps in the corridor, Kurozumi Orochi sat on the spot with an uncertain face. The ghosts of the Kazuki family. In the middle of Flower City Avenue, Dylan raised his hand. The whole team stopped in place instantly. On the other side of the long street, a team several times larger than G5 appeared in their field of vision. The one walking in the front is the strongest creature, Kaido. Shiryu was back behind Dylan to stand with Ain, Tom and Tahir. The originally domineering Beast's Pirates members were all quiet at this moment. More than a year ago, the man opposite came to Wano Kuni alone and injured Admiral Kaido. 2 months ago, Master Jack the Dro, who went out to hunt down the samurai, disappeared. Someone heard that it was killed by the guy opposite. Goo. Someone swallowed lightly. It was the pirate who had seen Dylan in Ghost Island a year ago. Mr. Fudsford, who had the ability to challenge for the position of Big Kanban, was hacked in half by the guy opposite him without even making it through. And Yamato, who was walking outside the Beast's Pirates line, immediately raised his eyebrows when he saw Dylan. It was him, that guy. When he came to Wano Kuni, he easily broke the bomb shackles that Quinn had put on his hands. But he refused to untie the other one because of his distaste for Goten. Although I don't know why Kaido didn't put the shackles back on her, Yamato didn't appreciate Kaido in his heart. Fathers in this world don't seem to be good at teaching their offspring. These 2 guys are not good people. Dylan smiled slightly at Kaido. Waiting for 20 years in Wano Kuni, now, do you have a feeling that your time is wasted? Great filial daughter, Yamato. Or they don't know how to teach their offspring at all, either they just beat them up or let them go. She walked aside, glanced at Dylan in the distance, and then at Kaido who was silent. Dylan looked over at his wrists, the shackles had been undone. Ooh, who knows, this kind of thing. When the 2 walked to a distance of more than 10 meters, they stopped very tacitly. Kaido, who was carrying a mace, grinned. But, just like Garp, Sukiyaki guys. Feeling Yamato's gaze, Dylan glanced at him. It doesn't matter anymore. Dylan smiled at Kaido, who, after all, had feelings for Yamato. Both teams stopped, only Dylan and Kaido were still slowly advancing. Kaido. How is it, Kaido? A cloud of flames emerged from under his feet. Chapter 184 Orthodoxy. Kaido has no arrogance, and he didn't use the flame cloud to carry the Ghost Island to the capital of flowers. Jin, Quinn and the remaining 5 Fei Lubao behind him were also not careless. They are different from those guys behind them. As senior cadres, they have the right to know external information, and most of them were present in the Dark Dragon attack more than a year ago. Drake was anxious. Dark Dragon Vice Admiral, does he know his identity? Will he kill himself too? As the captain of Sword, he is very aware of Dylan's temperament and habits. Just when he was hesitating whether to express his position in advance, a monstrous wave of air came from the sky. Dylan and Kaido came to the sky at the same time. The two conquerors' coercion erupted at the same time, even if they were not wrapped around the weapons and collided, the dark clouds in the sky began to churn wildly. Feeling the breath coming from the opposite side, Dylan slightly understood in his heart why Kaido lost to Sun God. In addition to arrogance and exhaustion of energy to lift the Ghost Island with flame clouds, he actually lost his fighting spirit as well. He lacked the courage to go forward and the will to fight without fear of death. This level of conquerors. What kind of king do you want to be? The beast-like Kaido stepped on the flame cloud and stared at Dylan on the opposite side. King. Dylan glanced at Kaido, and rested his right hand on Shira's knife handle. This is your flaw, sitting in a well and looking at the sky without knowing it. You are ignorant but complacent. Conquerors, in addition to being a manifestation of potential, is also a profile of mind and spirit. A salted fish that has lost its fighting spirit, even if it once had a powerful conquerors, will gradually decline until it dissipates. Yin. Shira unsheathed. Dylan flicked the blade and looked at Kaido, who had turned into a dragon. What kind of funeral do you want? The beast's pirates below looked at the giant dragon in the sky and their confidence rose again. Admiral Kaido cannot fail. Get rid of them. Someone in the crowd made a noise, and Jin and Quinn, who were still looking up at the battle in the sky, looked at each other and then exchanged glances. The victory or defeat in the sky determines the entire battle situation. And the engagement on the ground, although only additional, but. Boom. Flame rose from Jin's body, and Quinn also turned into a thick brachiosaurus. You idiot. Jin smiled at Quinn, who had turned into a brachiosaurus. Don't die so ugly. Quinn frowned and laughed. I should be the one who said that. You be asterisk 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 D. In G5's camp, neither Tom nor Tahir moved. Shiryu held Thunderstorm in his hand and looked at Jin bathed in fireworks, while Ain looked at Quinn. I've been underestimated. Although Shiryu of Rain and Ian of Broken Moon are also senior officers of G5 who have been famous for a long time, their ranking is always lower than that of Sky Fox, Tahir and Raging Sea, Tom. Tom and Tahir exchanged glances as Shiryu and Ian rushed out. You go. Tahir nodded. The Kurozumi Orochi in the Shogun's mansion is also a very important target person. Tahir closed the folding fan in his hand, and his body turned into purple flames and flew towards the general's mansion. Seeing Tahir disappear, the remaining Fei Lubao and Junda looked at Tom, who stayed where he was. If there is only one person. Kaka. Tom raised his hand and loosened the knuckle. Never hesitate in battle, this is his usual style, but before that. Chi-Chi Drake. Get over here. Drake's heart trembled, and he rushed out before the others could react. Sasaki, who has turned into a Triceratops, just wanted to rush over with Drake, but Black Maria next to him raised his hand to stop him. Advertisement. Wrong. Although Drake is brave, he is definitely not this brave. Do you dare to challenge Tom, Raging Sea, alone? Something wrong. Drake, who came behind Tom, did not undo his transformation, and the surrounding Marines stared at Drake one after another. He's Marine. He's undercover. Seeing Drake standing behind Tom like a subordinate, Black Maria shouted angrily, Traitor. I'm a Marine, why'd I say a traitor? Boom. There was a strong vibration in the street on the left. Quinn's huge body flew out from the other side of the street. PFF'd. Ahem. A deep bony scar on his chest was spurting blood outward. As this, the Dark Dragon's sword technique. In the smog of the ruins, In came out with autumn water in his hand and looked at Quinn coldly. Autumn. Chushui. Mr. Ryoma's weapon. And, why is Wanokuni's national treasure on that woman? Through the light painting, the battle scene of Wanokuni was transmitted, and the autumn water in Ain's hand was revealed in their sight. As that, the one who saved Wanokuni in the prophecy. The successor of the dragon-slaying warrior. In the corner of the Flower City, Kinemon looked at Ain on the light painting in astonishment. How could Chushui be in the hands of that woman? Isn't it enshrined in the temple? Kanjuro next to him also looked shocked. Could it be that Tianyushi's prophecy was true? At the time of Tianyu, it only said, the heaven and the dragon are 9 heavens, and you can see the dawn. But she didn't say who the 9 shadows are, it's just that everyone in Wanokuni pinned their hopes on the Kazuki family. 9 shadows. Through light painting, Kanjuro quickly observed the battle situation. The opponent's main combat power. Except for the mysterious person who was confronting Kaido, there seemed to be only 4 people. So who are the remaining 5 people? Raizo, the cat, and the dog are all dead, and he is not a samurai of the Kazuki family. There are still 5 Red Sheath 9 heroes, plus. Not quite right. Just when Kanjuro's face was distorted and he was struggling in his heart, Kinemon turned his head and said happily, we have to go to the general's mansion quickly. Let the people see the return of the Kazuki family. At that time, as long as the Kurozumi family can show greater sincerity, the other party may not accept it. Could this be the helper Lei Zhang found overseas? If the opponent is an ally of the Kazuki family, then it is impossible for them not to look for orthodox support. Damn it, if Momosuke is killed, the bloodline of the Kazuki family will be completely cut off. Why did God favor the Kazuki family so much? Why? But the years of undercover work gave him a very high professionalism, and he quickly calmed down. Judging by the current state of affairs, uncontrollable evil thoughts rose in Kanjuro's heart. Kanjuro's palms tightened, almost unable to control his killing intent. The other party, most likely just came to crusade against Kaido. The armed colors covering the arms and weapons slowly disappeared. His Majesty Momonosuke, Kanjuro nodded to Kanamon. Then let's go to the general's mansion first, and regain the orthodoxy. Kanjuro's eyes shifted slightly, looking at Momosuke with a happy face. Chapter 185 Progress. Hisong, who was running, also saw the giant dragon in the sky in the distance. That look, his memory is still fresh. But to Kawamatsu's surprise, Kaido just hovered in the air and didn't seem to be engaged in a fight. He couldn't see Dylan opposite Kaido. And the twin big brother behind him is very clear. Vice Admiral must be in the air too. They started. Maintain order. Tom stood where he was and glanced at the flying six cells and the barbarian facing him. Drake ignored the stares from the people in front of him, and stood behind Tom and began to think. The sword unit is considered classified information within Marine, but with the monstrous power of the Dark Dragon and the trust of Marshal Sakazuki in him, it is not surprising that he can know his identity. It's just that if you expose yourself when the battle situation is not yet clear. Before he finished thinking, Tom who was standing in front of him disappeared. The barbarian in the distance stems from some instinctive fear. Their IQ is not high, they are closer to monsters, and they obey the instinct of creatures. At this time, the breath coming out of Tom made them tremble. Ya, come to me. Yamato saw Tom rushing over and shouted at number 2 among the barbarians. Ya didn't hesitate when he heard Yamato's words, and walked to Yamato's side with big strides. Yamato nodded towards Arya and retreated towards the edge of the battlefield. She is Kazuki Oden, and her duty is to protect Wano-kuni. As for the war between that weirdo and Kaido, she doesn't want to be involved. After releasing the bondage, Yamato's mouth was filled with cold air. They all died together. Tom glanced at Yamato, who stepped aside, but he didn't pursue him, and he didn't pay much attention. This woman. In the blink of an eye, Tom has rushed into the crowd. Don't be too arrogant, Murloc, this is land. Sasaki, who had transformed into a triceratops, was pressed down on the ground by Tom with his left hand before he finished speaking. Click. The right fist covered in armed colors descended vertically, and Sasaki's triceratops head exploded instantly. Go together. Seeing this, Black Maria's scalp tightened, and they killed Sasaki instantly with one move. Although the scene just now shocked them greatly, they all knew that now was not the time to hesitate. Life and death. It's no longer up to them to decide. Dylan in the sky floated in the air with Shura. He didn't rush to kill Kaido immediately. I want to plant the seeds of fear in the hearts of the people of this country. It is necessary to make the scene bigger. Just like Kaido's fried Oden back then. Kaido fell silent as he watched the war that had begun in the Flower City below. Take a breath. Not to mention whether you can go down or not, even if you go down, most of the people who die will be their own people. And he knew it, in the Summit War. After Whitebeard shot and killed the Titan Marine, the guy on the opposite side killed Whitebeard's 7th team captain in an instant. Although you can't see the dawn of the world, I can invite you to watch another play. Dylan glanced at the capital of flowers below. Kanamon was rushing towards the shogun's mansion with Momosuke and Kurozumi Kanjuro. And at the city gate on the other side of the capital of flowers, Kazuki Sukiyaki is also rushing towards the general's mansion. General's mansion. Maha's body was reduced to ashes. Tahir looked towards the middle room. Hearing the steady footsteps outside, Kurozumi Orochi asked subconsciously, how is it outside? Very smooth. Then, advertisement. Kurozumi became alert before the words of Orochi finished. Not Fu Lu Shou, nor his maid. Who's outside? The sliding door was slowly pushed open, and a person in a dark blue robe appeared at the door. Who are you? The person who came to take your dog's life. Tahir smiled at him and flicked his fingers lightly. The purple fireworks turned into streamers and instantly cut off Kurozumi's head. Watching his head fall to the ground, Tahir stood where he was and did not leave. The phantom beast Yamada no Orochi fruit, although I don't know whether it has 8 heads or 8 lives. If he was directly burned to death, it is not known whether he will be resurrected in other ways. Tahir stood quietly and looked at the big snake's body. Isn't it resurrected? Boom. The body of Kurozumi Orochi, who had fallen on the ground, began to twist, and after a while, it turned into the image of a hydra. Tahir was not surprised by his change. He glanced at the ugly intertwined snake heads. 7. That being the case, Tahir turned his palm, pressing his thumb against his middle finger. Scoff. The arc of purple flame flew out instantly with the popping of the middle finger. Chi. The big snake's body, which hadn't reacted yet, began to twist violently. All 7 heads had landed, and his body was shaking and spinning unconsciously. Rustle. As the breath of life from Kurozumi disappeared, his body reverted back to human form. Tahir walked slowly to his corpse and observed it carefully. Then purple fox fire ignited from inside his body, and after 2 breaths, Kurozumi disappeared forever. Okay. On the periphery of the general's mansion, there are two breaths of life approaching rapidly. Momosuke and his servants. After Tahir chuckled, his body turned into purple fireworks and left from the window. Flower City Long Street. Quinn, who was hit by Ain again, returned to the middle of the long street. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Quinn showed an incredulous expression. Raging Sea, Tom. Actually attack the weak. Conviction. Not good. In the fight just now, he was already at a disadvantage. In addition to his chest being cut open, his abdomen was also pierced by Broken Moon, Ian. If it wasn't for Zone's powerful life force supporting him, he would have died long ago. But it was just a moment of loss of consciousness just now, and the woman's voice appeared behind him. 10 Temple Yama, Chushui, who sank into Quinn's back, burst out with dazzling slashes instantly. Quinn's internal organs were instantly shattered by the blow, and Ain, who was stepping on his back, put his hands on Chushui, his expression froze. Ho! As the strength poured into the autumn water, cracks gradually appeared on Quinn's skin. Boom! Like a balloon exploding, Quinn's body exploded with a loud noise. Into minced meat. In jumped down from the air, flicked the blade and looked at the long street. The flying six cells and the barbarian were all killed by Tom. And those who tried to escape are surrounded by other marines. Tom glanced at Ain and nodded at him. Improved greatly. Ain nodded in response, then walked over to Tom and looked at the other side of the long street. Shiryu's body had become almost demonic, and the land around him had been completely covered in black mist. Shiryu. Tom frowned. Don't spoil it, this is Ayu's home.